Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to call the City Commission workshop for Monday, June 27th, 2022 to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Bradford?
Here.
Commissioner King?
He's on Zoom.
Commissioner McCool?
Here.
Commissioner Ramos?
Present.
Commissioner Sosa?
Here.
Vice Mayor Vila Vasquez?
She's excused.
And Mayor Hersberg.
Here. May we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have one item on our agenda today, and that's a workshop to review the proposed annual budget for fiscal year 2022-2023. Before we move ahead, DTV, the on-air sign is not on. Is that just not on? There we go. Okay, just making sure that we're broadcasting. Okay, so this afternoon we'll be going to go line by line through all the departments. Mr. Peters?
Yes, ma'am. We have 31 tabs to go through, and the first tab is for the City Commission. And open the floor up to any questions you may have.
Okay, Commissioners, how we're going to do this, if we're going to go page by page, if you have questions in a certain tab, please let us know what page and your question, and go ahead. Let's see, Commissioner Bradford.
Okay, question. So we're going to go through the proposed
line by
budget
line.
book or the line item
Line by line.
Okay, because my first tab is general funding for that.
Okay, so well, we'll just
That's what
go.
I'm trying to figure out. Are we going through this one first?
No, we're going to go through the line by, the request was for the line by line budget. So we will go through that and start with this first tab is City Commission. So
Okay.
Commissioner Sosa?
Before we get started, I just got a couple questions. What was the taxable value that you were using to generate ad valorem taxes this year?
What was that again, sir?
What is the taxable value that we're using to calculate the ad valorem taxes?
We're looking it up.
Yes. Yes.
We just seen the taxable value that was published by the property appraiser on June 1st.
Yeah, I didn't get a copy of
Okay,
that
hold
one
on.
yet.
Do you girls need like 5 minutes?
No.
Okay. While we're waiting for that, does anyone have any, if you have any questions on the City Commission budget, please click in. Okay. Commissioner Bradford, while we're waiting, let us know when they're, just speak up when you guys have it.
Okay, so
Okay.
I've got just a few things on this one. And actually, I noticed a consistency, so I'm just going to bring it up on the first one. I noticed going through all of them, and I don't know if this is just normal or not, but I noticed when we have wages going up, that obviously our FICA is going to go up, our health insurance is going to go up, but I'm seeing an inconsistency on each one of these departments, and even there's a few where wages are extremely high and workers' comp went down. The chance of workers' comp going high when we've raised the wages is slim to none. So I just think that we need to have a consistency, and maybe we can double check that, or maybe you guys are doing actual numbers. But as I went through line item by line item, there's many departments where it would say wages went up, but yet different things came down or were much higher. But the workers' comp drastically stood out that they were going down instead of up, which that can cost thousands of dollars a year. Also, number 523102, legal services, that's up 50. That was 50,000 over. And I did my comparison just so anybody wants to follow from our 21-22 budget. So legal services, that 50K, was that the Cooper case that we had set aside?
You
For
have
what
an answer
year?
on what the com-
It says 52310, number, it says legal services, 50K.
Page 2 in the commission budget.
Under general legal?
Yes.
Just a second. Can I just answer his question before I move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, the taxable pre-preliminary from the property appraisals was $3,911,367,719.
I hate to ask, but can you turn your mic on
I think it's supposed to be on.
one more time?
Hello?
Thank you.
Yeah, say it again slower, please, so we can all hear.
$3,911,367,719.
And do you know how big an increase is that over 2021?
I'd have to go to the property appraiser's website to get that.
Okay.
So I know and right now I'm having an internet connection problem. So can I get back to you with that?
Okay, thank you.
We'll send out an email tomorrow with the information.
Awesome.
Okay.
The neighborhood center is also one more thing. Our last pay was, as I am told, 2022 was our last $50,000. Is this commission wanting to continue to pay the neighborhood center $50,000 a year?
It's not 50, it's 5. Is it 50 a year?
50,000. I believe that's what was on here. It says 50,000
And-
under 588200 homeless neighborhood center to land 50,000. I believe our last pay was supposed to be 2022.
Because that was just for the building, correct, Commissioner? Right?
Yeah.
That was just for the building of the bridge.
That was-
That was for 5 years, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So do we want to continue that? If not, because it's in this budget. So our last payment would have been 22, right? That was the email we received.
Yes, and that, actually, the email went out, yes, that the
Right.
commission would have to address whether or not we want to continue funding that.
So that's 50,000. I guess that's something we need to figure out. Do we want to continue funding the building, or,
Yeah, they're up and built, occupied, you know?
so do we want to continue it or no? Because it's in this next budget.
So are we, just to clarify, are we going to go page by page or commissioner by commissioner? I just want to, because I want to discuss that too, but how are we going?
So we're going to
we can
go
discuss it.
tab by tab, and whoever has questions on the tab of, that we're on, the commission, and if you want to speak on that same item, just feel free to go ahead and speak on it. It's a workshop.
You got
But
it.
just click in if you have a question, then get on the board. But if you want to be part of the discussion, just speak up, Commissioner McCool. So we're talking right now about the neighborhood center and the $50,000, whether or not we want to fund that again. Has anybody from the neighborhood center been in contact with any staff member regarding that, and have they brought forth that request that they want to continue funding that? Mr. Paradise, if you know the answer, let us know.
The answer is I don't know, but we'll check.
Well, the question is, do we want to check? Because if they knew that they are done with their 50,000 and they have no other request for it, I mean, they should be coming to us. It is budget time.
I agree.
So, commissioners, comments on that? Do we want to go ahead and have your options are have Mr. Paradise reach out to the neighborhood center for continued funding, or we don't, and we don't fund this and take it out of the budget?
Well, our problem is we're supposed to be doing budget now, which they're aware of, and that's $50,000. And if that's $50,000, that,
Well, were they here for the CDBG money? It's my recollection they were not.
They were not present, but they did participate in the process. I think it's important to keep in mind that the city does fund a lot of public service activity. The neighborhood center is unique in the fact that they actually have bed space, and they're the only public service provider that provides bed space for homeless type of activities or events. So I think that's important to keep that in mind.
And that is completely funded with the money that we give through community block grant funding, okay? Not the $50,000 that came out of general into their budget for the building. So that's where my issue is. They're not building anymore. They are occupied. That $50,000 should go back into our operating capital for whatever commission sees fit for it. But we're done with that component, but continue to fund it, our community block grant funding, fund because I do not believe they ever had any leftover money at the end of a fiscal year from our community block grant funding. So, and that is $25,000 if I'm not mistaken. So that would be my recommendation also, is to pull it from the budget.
Commissioners, do we have consensus in that?
I agree.
We're going to just go ahead. Commissioner Sosa, Commissioner Bradford, Commissioner Ramos, yes, and me.
Yes.
So, out. Oh, Commissioner King, I'm sorry. Commissioner King.
That's okay. Pretend like I'm not here.
And you're on 3 big screens.
My only comment on that is, if we made an agreement,
That's the end of that one.
All right.
We did fulfill our agreement.
See if we did. Yes.
Because it was specifically for the bridge, and the bridge is built, done, and occupied and in use. And so our community block grant funding is the thing that helps keep fuel in the fire there, as it were. So we're done with that commitment.
Commissioner King, can he hear us? Maybe he can hear us, but to your point, Commissioner King, we did fulfill our 5-year obligation of $50,000 a year for capital, is our understanding. And so we have $25,000 allocated in CDBG funding for actual operations and helping the Deltona community. So
Okay. Remove.
the consensus right now is 1, 2, 3, 5 of us would like to remove it. Commissioner King, when you're back online, if you'd like to speak on that, just let me know.
Okay. Can I go back to the legal services and see if we have an answer on that 50,000?
Yes, legal services of $50,000.
Yes, ma'am. What we did in this year's budget is the legal costs were allocated to each department based on past practice. So the $50,000 would be an allocation of the overall legal cost to the commission for their services for the commission. So as you go through the budget, you will see every department has an allocation for legal when it's appropriate.
John, I think we are going to do that, but these were printed before, so some of the information here has not been updated.
Okay.
Because the budget is actually a moving target. We're working on it every day. So what's been printed and put on the website, there may be some changes, and we are going to allocate, but I think that Kian has a recollection that you had added 50,000 for another purpose, which I can't remember. Do you remember what the purpose was? So I can't really say exactly why it was added. I don't remember.
I can't hear you. I didn't see it in all departments. That's where I'm questioning it. So I don't see it listed in every department. So what you're saying is you're going to charge back each department a percentage of what their legal services are going to be? So when will we know what that division is? So doesn't that change then legal's overall number? Because you still have legal's overall number and legal services, but then if you're going to allocate it and break it down into each department, wouldn't that take that number down?
Well, I know some of the departments already have an allocation in there. For instance, in water and sewer, I had 3 different people reach out to me from the community with questions. All 3 of them made mention of the fact that legal services was shown in several different departments, and my comment to them was that we're allocating the legal to the different departments, but apparently we haven't done it for all of them. Yeah.
You're also allocating capital equipment or IT, or you're also allocating IT to every single department, correct?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And capital projects.
capital, right?
also for
Both of those.
replacement of equipment.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, that's all I had for that department.
Okay. Next.
Let me clarify. When I said the legal by department, I should have said legal by fund. So like if you have an enterprise fund for water and sewer, they're allocated. Stormwater is an enterprise account, and it's allocated to that fund.
So commission is a enterprise fund?
No, I think that was added for another purpose, and I have to go back to my notes. We've had numerous budget meetings, and I just don't recall. And I
Okay.
think it was, we have it in here, it was added per a decision that John made, and I don't recall what it was for.
So we don't know why that 50,000's in there, because we're not an enterprise fund, so it shouldn't,
No.
without a specific reason, I kind of need to know that.
Well, I'll have to get back to you on that
Thank
question.
you.
So commissioners, what we're going to do then, when there's a question like that, staff will please keep a running tally of the questions, and if we don't have them by the end of this meeting today, they will be sent out in an email.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Commissioner McCool.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to speak about publications and membership in general, if we could.
Page number?
I'm sorry, page number 5, tab 1.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to understand about River to Sea at $9,100. I just need to understand that relationship. I understand what the relationship is, right? But I need to understand why we have to pay to be a member of, this organization. Same thing, League of Cities, I get it. Team Volusia, EDC membership at $50,000. Can you just clue me in on that, please?
Mr. Peters, can you explain the reasons for the belonging to the League of Cities, the River of Sea, and Team Volusia?
Okay. League of Cities is a statewide organization that provides a lot of services, including keeping us apprised of legislative items out there, changes in various regulations from different departments of the state. They also provide a service where we can list job openings on their site. We get better responses, things of that
Ethics
nature.
training?
Then within the umbrella of the League of Cities is the Volusia League of Cities. This is an opportunity for us to meet with our peer communities to find out what's going on in Volusia County. And also, we have 2 commissioners. The League of Cities had various committees on special issues. I believe the mayor is a member of one of those, and I think the vice mayor.
No, nobody else but me.
Oh, just you?
And I'm on 2 or 3 committees, yes.
Yeah,
I chaired
okay.
the Public Works, Utilities, and Natural Resources Committee for the entire state this year, and I'm on the Advocacy Committee. No one else participates, which I encourage you to all participate because it's free and you learn a lot and you have the opportunity to bring knowledge back. They also provide ethics training. They provide all different types of training. They provide any type of service when you have questions about municipalities, about legal things in terms of what's coming down from the state. All those options, there's so many things that a lot of municipalities don't even take advantage of that the League of Cities provides. They have insurance programs and everything. That is their overview.
Yep. And I apologize. The vice mayor is on the Affordable Housing Committee, and I mistakenly thought that was part of the League of Cities, but it's not. Team Volusia is basically a public-private partnership arm of our economic development effort. A lot of corporations who are looking to relocate or a company, they're concerned with records loss. Sometimes they want to be able to inquire without being broadcast back where their home is. So the fact that League of Cities is public-private partnership, they're able to have those communications prior to the public getting involved and making it a public record. So they serve a key function. In the case of Amazon, they were the lead agency that helped us with that. So they do provide a very good service for us.
Okay, and I understood that was for the public because I was asked that question. Why do we need these memberships and what are they for? And do we have IMCA in the budget for I know that we can get reimbursed, right? I get reimbursed for it, but do we have that in the budget or is it just a reimbursement thing? I didn't see it anywhere,
what?
but I'm just going to think it's a
For what?
IMCA. I just got reimbursed. That's fine. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sosa.
Yeah, I just got a question. You know, if we're going to look at 524001, the mileage reimbursement for the mayor and the commissioners at $5,500, does anybody ever take advantage of that? Because I've never taken advantage of that. I mean, do we use that? Does that actually have to even be in there?
Yes, it does, because there are people that get their mileage reimbursed.
Some folks are getting
Yes.
reimbursements? Okay.
They always have, correct? Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah, I've never done it. I'm just curious. And then under commission photos for $2,500, do we pay somebody to do those pictures, or is that something that staff does? Because I've never really seen a picture come up in 2
In the
years.
past, we had a professional photographer that came in and did the work. We elected to do it in-house this year, and we will reevaluate for next year whether we want to go back to a professional. I think we actually went away from it due to COVID for a couple of years.
It's been a while that we haven't had professional photographers, probably about 4 years.
I've been here 6 years and we never had a professional.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So does it cost $2,500 to?
Actually, I had one of the questions I received from the public was on this very subject. You know, as you all know, I dabble in photography, and I can tell you $2,500 is actually not that high of a rate for the number of photographs and things that we do as part of this. So it is ordinary and customary in terms of that kind of price.
That's if you're outsourcing it, but if we've got somebody in here on the clock, we're not paying them to take a picture.
Then in that particular case, we would not be spending the $2,500 if we do it ourselves.
So we are doing, but we've been doing it in-house, but we keep budgeting, you know, $2,500 a year when it should be done every 2 years. So
Would you like to remove it from the budget?
I think that needs to go.
Okay,
I mean, we're
2,500.
doing it in-house, so there's no sense
Consensus,
budgeting
commissioners?
for it.
Commissioner
Yes.
McCool? Yes. Commissioner Bradford?
Yes.
Commissioner King? 2,500 out? Yes, sir? Yes
What's
or
the
no?
number on
Yes.
that?
Yes, okay. 2,500 out.
And I do have one question, but before we start making any more cuts in that. What is the total dollar amount that you need from ad valorem taxes to make the budget work?
Can you ask it again, please?
What is the total amount of ad valorem taxes that you need to make the budget work the way it sits right now? At what millage rate do you need it based on the taxable value of the $3 billion?
Sir, when we did the workshops a couple weeks ago, part of the workshop was showing you all the multiple spreadsheets that showed the different ad valorem rates and what the impact was over 5 years. The budget is the same no matter what we're preparing is not related to an ad valorem rate at this time. We gave you spreadsheets that showed you, I believe, 6.95, which was the estimated rollback, 7.25, 7.55, and 7.85. Now, when you looked at those spreadsheets, for instance, with the rollback after 5 years, we went from about 16 million end-of-year fund balance down to a negative, I believe, 1.6 million. With the current 7.85, we maintained the fund balance, and I think it actually went up slightly. At 7.55, it stayed relatively flat, and at 7.25, we had a pretty significant drop in the end-of-year fund balance by the end of the 5th year.
Now, when you did those, that's why I was kind of curious what the 2021 taxable value was, to see what the percentage was. Did you calculate a percentage in taxable values when you did that coming down?
We kept the taxable value, I believe, flat during that calculation. Part of the reason we did that is we were trying to be conservative. There is a lot of discussion about the possibility that the United States is going into a recession. In fact, I heard over the weekend it's now 50-50, according to the federal chairman of the Fed. So we kept the taxable value flat so that if we do have a recession, it will not put a huge hole in our budget. But as a general rule, I think that number goes up anywhere from about 1.8 to 3% a year, which is not a substantial amount.
All right, thank you.
So piggybacking on that, Commissioner Sosa, I just want to state publicly that I'm not a fan of basing a budget on what you can remove from your reserves to continue that. The reality is we have to set a millage rate, at least have consensus for a millage rate at the end of this budget workshop. Going line by line to remove items and ask questions is going to tally up a total of what we're going to remove, because if you look at the spreadsheet for any of these millage rates, whether it's 758, 725, 785, or rollback at 6.89, according to these figures, you're dipping a small amount into your reserves for next year or a bigger amount. You're not actually cutting items out of the budget. Am I correct, sir? Is that right?
Yes.
So to the exercise of removing things for the budget, we can go through this page by page and decide what we want to keep and what we want to get rid of. But we have to have a millage rate at the end of this that's going to be palatable for everyone. And then we have to project that out for next year and the following year, because the projections that you have keep your revenues flat according to whatever millage rate you have, and that's not going to be correct. Because in order to set a millage rate and project what you're going to have the next year, there's a lot of variables there. And if you want to continue with the same millage rate, if you go down this year, if you go to rollback this year, there's a limit as to how much you can raise next year. And if you continue to reduce, you will not only, you have to cut positions. You have to make this, it has to be reoccurring costs. To take out $50,000 or $25,000 or $2,500 out of a budget is for this year. But what does it do for the following years? Because there's no way, like if we look at rollback, and I'm just throwing this out there straight up, if we want to go to rollback, we have to cut $2.5 million. Am I correct? We have to cut $2.5 million out of the budget or take $2.5 million for the reserves. And then next year, you're going to be short again and take more out. So when we look at line by line and what we're cutting or not cutting, you have two options. You keep the budget as is, take out little things, and then take from your reserves the next few years, or you start cutting this budget. And the budget, when you cut from this budget and further budgets, you have to cut reoccurring costs. You can't just take a capital project or a small project out. You have to cut those costs that will recur every single year. So, Commissioner McCool?
And I want us to be cognizant of the fact that what happened last time we went to roll back, the recovery period that it took 10, what was the graph, 10, 11 years, right, to recover from that and the recession to come back up.
But we never went to rollback.
No, but when we went to recession, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Last time, it took us 10, 11 years to recover, evidenced by the figures that we see. It's in our packet here somewhere, but it took a long time for recovery. That's my point.
So we'll continue with going through the line by line, see what we can wipe out here, and see where that takes us, and then determine what the commission wants to do in terms of setting a millage rate. Because I've always said I'm not a fan of taking everything out of our reserves year after year, because the reality is you're not going to be able to put it back. If you're taking out of it now, how are you going to make that up next year? How are you going to save, if you have to take $2.5 million out, how are you going to save $2.5 million next year? And then if you take it out again, how are you going to, get $3-4 million the following year to save that? It's just, it's a downward spiral. So Okay, right now we are through the city commission budget and we are on city manager budget. Any other questions in that line? Commissioner Bradford.
Okay, couple items. We're giving vehicle allowance now to the deputy city manager.
Yes, ma'am.
We've never done that before. Is there a specific reason?
It was part of the compensation package that we agreed to. I could have just as easily increased her salary, but it was agreed that, you know, car allowance was more appropriate method than a higher salary. It was part of negotiated.
Okay. We have nothing in the budget compared, again, I've compared budgets to previous years. Generally under 523-101, we have money in there for strategic planning. We have no money in there for anything strategic planning wise. So I'm assuming we're not cutting out strategic planning, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So where is that now? Where's that 7,000 that's generally budgeted in for strategic planning?
We will probably be doing it in-house. this
We did
coming
it
year.
in-house last year, right?
Pardon me?
The strategic plan, didn't we do that in-house last year where we all came here and
We had strategic planning this year as a preliminary to the budget process. The strategic planning, the goal of that is to begin the budget process, get feedback from the commission as to those items that you would like to have included into the budget as we start preparing it.
We had a consultant.
Excuse me, Commissioner Bradford.
Yeah, go ahead, but I think, you know, having the strategic planning is critical and having our constituents' involvement, that's important to me.
It's in the Finance Department budget.
It's in the Finance Department budget? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. McCool, Commissioner.
No, I'm just saying, we had it here, but we
Right.
had a consultant, right?
So
We had a
you're saying no
consultant last year.
consultants?
Generally, we don't do it every single year with a consultant.
We have done the last 2 years. We did a big strategic plan, and then this past year was like an update to that plan. So every 5 years, we do a strategic plan, and we've tried to incorporate it as part of the budget process to give the commission an opportunity to look at the big picture before we kick off the budget. It gives staff an idea of what the commission would like for the city.
Okay, so that is in the budget in finance.
Yeah, that's 130.
There was also a line item under 523-101 for CM research, 75,000. Why was that removed?
Can you repeat the question? What was removed?
It's the city manager research, I guess,
That was the search.
the search for the city
I believe
manager.
it- Right, I think that's,
So we're not budgeting anything for a city manager search?
is the commission, do you intend to go out for city manager?
Well, I don't know. We've got a new commission coming in, so I don't know what the wish may be. I mean, we still have an acting city manager.
If it's your will to look for a new city manager, we will budget that cost. I guess we need direction from you.
Commissioners, do you want to go ahead? I mean, we were taking the 50,000 out from the neighborhood center. Do you want to go ahead and put 50,000 or 75,000 in for a search? If it gets spent, it's there. If it doesn't, it goes back in the general fund. Commissioner King, any comments? I don't want to miss you. No, you're good.
No, I see no reason to do that at this point. If we decide down the road that we're going to search for a city manager, then the money will be in the general fund. We'll budget it then. We'll use it then.
Commissioner McCool?
And there's housekeeping that we need to do also. I think that the answer is we always have money in to search for a city manager on a yearly basis. While we're talking about it, we need to get to the bigger point that we've still not made a decision on what that looks like when we're searching for a city manager, because we tried it in the charter amendments and we've still not made any. We need to understand what it is we're looking for, right, before we look for it. There's still the question, do you want your city manager to live in the city limits? period. There's still the thing out there that we have an acting city manager that is not a charter officer and we're a charter city. That's not been answered. So I'm just bringing this up while the elephant's moving around in the room, you know what I mean, that we talk about that. But my answer is we should always have money in the budget. Where you get that from, I don't know, but there should always be money there. We don't know what tomorrow holds. We have a fantastic acting city manager right now, but those are the things that we need to think about as we move through. And you're right, a new commission is coming up. So it is, we must be stewards and look out for what they might want also. So there's that. I have all confidence in our acting city manager, but we have questions that we have still not answered regarding that we need to answer.
So yes or no for putting, yes, budgeted? Commissioner
Yes.
Sosa?
Yes?
You put it in the budget.
And Commissioner Ramos, yes? Okay, and what kind of an amount, commissioners, do you want to do? It was previously in there as 75,000, Commissioner Bradford?
Right.
Should we put that in again? 75,000?
Well, if for any reason we have to do a search, I think upwards, it's going to probably be close to 75 to 100,000.
It will be.
You know, and, you know, at this point, it's a carryover, so we would be leaving ourselves short if we just left 50,000 if by chance we had to do it. So, I mean, how much we just took out. I mean, we still don't know if they give us an answer for legal services of 50,000. We got neighborhood center 50,000, and then the 2,500.
Let's just do 75,000 then, as to what it was. That's what you said it was previously, right?
Right, it's previous 75.
Yeah, because in
Commissioner Sosa,
reality,
you good with that?
50,000, that's net neutral, you know what I mean?
That's the last couple years. And then under, as well, 523401, we have website redesign in there. Now, over the last two budgets, it was in there at 30K. Now we're in there at 130K.
Yes, ma'am. We are talking about a complete revamp of our website. We have had numerous complaints about the difficulty of navigating our website. The previous money was more as a patch, but what we're talking about now is a complete revamp of the city website. My ideal world is that website would be 3 or 4 clicks to any information you need. Right now, we did a printout of all the papers, the pages associated. It was a huge list, and so it just needs to be done from scratch, and because we've had so many people that have had the ability to make changes, and like I said, when we printed out all the pages associated with it, it was a very large stack, so we need to minimize the number of pages and make it easier to reach them.
And what's the estimates that you've received on that? Have you received any estimates on the system?
Yes.
That's how we came up with the 130.
That's where you came up with 130? Okay.
Commissioner Sosa? On this item?
Yeah, it was about the website. I really dislike our website. I can't find anything on it.
Thank you.
I search on it for hours, and I cannot find what I'm looking for.
Horrible.
So we definitely need to make our website user-friendly. It is not user-friendly at all. Now, my question is, do we plan on using the same company to design this one, or are you looking for a different firm?
We actually have gotten a quote from our current contractor, and we've looked for another, but we haven't done an RFP. It seems that those that are building sites have some very nice templates, and you can see some of them actually in action in other municipalities close by. So that is one of them. But I'm looking to have, I think, a little bit more input on what it looks like than where we are. As it was stated, we've had a lot of hands in the pot, and we're trying to reduce that. So that's actually one of the things that we're doing with the communications department, is making sure everything goes through them so we get a little bit more consistency and have things easier to find.
Okay. Now you said you had a lot of hands in the pot that were making changes here and there. Are you going to have a dedicated person
Yes.
doing the website?
Yes.
To update and so forth?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner
Mayor,
McCool?
real quick, Madam Mayor, didn't they, League of Cities, when we were at the conference?
I was going to bring that up.
Did they have many, okay, I'll let you bring it up.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Commissioner McCool?
I was thinking exactly the same thing. If we can get that feedback from our people regarding some cities that the residents do find user-friendly, because there are many levels of computer savvy out there, and we have a lot of people that, we need like the jitterbug phone version of the website. Dig deep if you know what I mean, if you need to, but have some things like that. So that would be great to see and to put out there for the public regarding user-friendly. Thank you.
Commissioner Bradford, multiple years ago, several of us were at the League of Cities conference, and we actually talked to people that were vendors there. And the bottom line with the city's website is that it's been cheaped out for years. Nobody wanted to spend, I'm just going to be straight up, didn't want to spend anything. Little here, little there. It's better than it was when I first came into this position as a commissioner. That was even more horrendous. But this thing is so user-friendly. I, too, Commissioner Sosa, spent a long time trying to pull up a temporary sign permit. Now, that was quite the challenge. You know where I got it? Google, PDF filler. Never got it on the website. Just a comment. So we have to spend the money to do this right, because it's been horrendous for years. Commissioner King, any comment? Okay.
Nope.
Commissioner Sosa, are you still on the board or no? I'm good. Okay.
I think we kind of went from mine. The last thing I had on this was banners. So under 52480, we have banners on there. It was what we believe, were we not using the county's polls and told we were not able to use those. So I don't think we used those funds last year, correct, for the banners. So has something changed from then to now for the banners?
No, ma'am. The only thing we have, if we do have some poles that we're in control of now, such as on Deltona Boulevard, the poles I believe you're referring to were the ones that on the county roads like Saxon and Normandy, the one that I know was an issue. We have a number of banners that we would put up on Howland, Providence, Saxon, and the county roads, but there are some city control roads that we could put banners on, but they're not the most highly traveled roads.
Okay, so my question is last year I think we discussed in detail banners and advertising, getting it out there, and we were told we weren't able to do the banners. So now we're able to do the banners? I mean, because if we're not able to do them, then we need to take it out of the budget. I mean, if we're not going to do them, we're not going to do them.
There are a number of ways of doing banners. There are the ones that have the brackets that are on existing poles. You can also do banners that go across the roadway. So if it's the commission's desire to do banners, I believe we can find some methods that will allow us to do it. It's just a matter of it's the consensus of the commission that you want to have banners to get the information out about the city.
I mean, we had consensus of it a year ago, but we were told it couldn't be done.
Well, unfortunately, brackets were put up on poles that there was no permission. So I think that it's been changed now. And I mean, banners to me are a great way to advertise our signature events, holiday events and so forth. So is the commission willing to either remove the money for the banners or keep it in?
Keep it in and use it.
Yep. Commissioner King, you good with keeping it in?
Do we have a policy? Do we have a policy set forth on what they can be used for?
Nope.
Nope, we don't have a policy on that? Can we make a request that one gets SIP? Because that's going to happen. So as we do that, keep it in the budget. Who can use it for what? Because that's
No, we use it for, it's used for city events.
Yep.
That's my understanding. But we'll definitely, if you can get us a policy that either exists, or if we need to look at that as who uses the banners. Commissioner McCool?
I wasn't up to taking it out. I just wanted to verify if it's in here that we utilize it, because it's been carried over and we didn't utilize it last year. So that's more carried over money from last year that wasn't used. So,
Commissioner McCool, are you on the board for?
No, that's what I was going to ask about policy on that. We're going to have it, use it, and set policy for it.
Okay, any other questions? Then if not, we'll move on to the City Clerk's Department, tab 3.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I could ask if we could move to HR.
Yes, let's just go through the clerk, and then we'll go to HR. Any questions on city clerk?
Madam Mayor, is there a comment today? Is there public comment today?
At the end?
At the end, okay,
Yes, if there's time permitting, yes.
okay.
Okay, any comments, city clerk's page? Budget, sorry. Nothing? Then we'll move to HR, and HR is going to be tab 9, and then we'll come back to finance.
Hey, I'm sorry, guys, I had a question regarding city clerk office.
Yes.
I don't know if I just need to ask this here or none, but I had asked the deputy city manager regarding vacant positions as of June, and so since we were there were, can I ask if there are about two personnel openings, right? Some of cost, personnel cost for that. So we have those openings, right? Do we have personnel? It's in the budget. This is in the budget. Is this in the budget, Stacy, what you gave me?
Dark ages.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
There was I asked for vacant positions.
Yes.
Right, and I got that. And the total sum cost of personnel, $103,000. There's a 2-person opening in that office.
Correct.
Is that funded or not funded?
So those are included in the current year budget, but those positions have been frozen, so there is no funding in the salaries line item for those 2 positions.
It's in the budget,
It's in the 2022 budget.
but it's frozen right now.
Correct.
Okay, so are we intending on hiring this upcoming year?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So do we take that out of the budget?
It has been
It's out.
removed from the budget.
It's in this
In
year's
your
budget,
draft
but it's not
budget
in
for
this line.
23, it is not there.
Okay, I'm going to ask a more simple question. Are we hiring 2 people for city clerk this upcoming year?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Can I just make a comment on that also? There's a crap ton of unsightly boxes up there that we need to go through. I'm just putting that out there, and it's listen, if they need help doing that, because I've been going up there for a year, and they've been up there, and we all know that a lot of these are caused by frivolous public records requests. So, and when I say frivolous, people, please do not bring the pitchforks for me, because I believe in good public access to public records. But we have a lot of people, or certain entities, did nothing but try to shut the government down. That was the request of the public records. Let me just get that out there. And there's help needed. So can I just make that request out there that we look at that to get that stowed away? So that's all. Can I ask that in the upcoming year, that we think about that, whether it's temporary services or whatever, but get the boxes where they should go, I guess.
So noted.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to HR. Any questions for Rebecca? And it would be tab 9. Commissioner Bradford, I'm sorry. I was looking at my book and not the screen.
I was trying not to look, just in case you had a chance to look.
Sorry.
So just a quick question. I mean, I noticed a lot of your items are down, which I always love to see. However, when it comes to hiring, I know you're having fun this year doing that. So are you anticipating all positions to be filled and leveled out?
Yeah, I think we actually did a pretty spectacular job this year. We filled a lot more vacancies than I believe we have in the previous fiscal years. That was a combination of participating in the job fair and then an additional push by our department to try to catch up on a lot of positions that were carried over into this budget year from last year. So they were previously frozen, they became unfrozen. We put a lot of effort in, and I think we did a great job. At the point that we are now, between the positions that have been discussed for the upcoming fiscal year, there are some, I guess you could say, like a placeholder put on them, some positions that have tentatively been frozen under review either by the departments themselves or by the city manager. And so if you take those out and then you look at where we are with our vacancies, we're doing a really good job, because there's we're at a point now in this part of the year where we have less vacancies than I think that we have had throughout the rest of the fiscal year. And we have a lot of people that are in recruitment. There's another thing that's been pushing our vacancies, and that's promotions. What I've noticed is that through this past fiscal year that there's been a lot of internal promotions, which has not always been the case in the previous fiscal years. And that just kind of keeps our vacancies, you know, kind of at the same number consistently, because no sooner than we promote 2 people internally, then we have to turn around and we have to fill those vacancies. But we are advertising right now for recruitment, and I personally think that we're in good shape with that.
Okay. Have you already purchased the fingerprinting machine?
No, there's been, you know, obviously some changes in our department and some issues that have come about that are pretty time-consuming and demanding upon our department, in addition to, you know, the efforts for recruitment that we've done. So we've been researching different products. We've had some assistance with that, but I'll be honest with you, I really just haven't had the time to devote to reviewing the information that's been provided to try to determine what the best option is and to understand it to the level that I think it needs to be understood before we spend the money. So there is money that was placed into the budget for that, because it will be a cost-saving measure. But, you know, just some things that kind of sidetrack efforts sometimes.
Okay.
You good?
I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner McCool?
I'm good. I'm good, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move now to tab 4, Finance. Any questions in finance, ladies and gentlemen? Commissioner Bradford?
Just as something quick noted, it's not a lot of money, but timesheets, are you also charging each department for timesheets? Because I noticed under finance and in general government, you have that listed as a charge on the same line item, 524701. So it's under finance and it's under general government as well.
For timesheets?
For, yeah, it says like copies such as timesheets, trip and those, it's under both.
No,
blank
we don't
forms?
charge timesheets to each department. As a matter of fact, we're implementing a product right now, or software called ExecuTime, which will eliminate timesheets. It's been a journey trying to get it implemented because of connectivity issues, but we are on the right track. That's moving forward again. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen, so we budget it. If we don't spend it, it stays in general fund.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else for finance? And we'll move on to IT, tab 5. Let's see what we have for IT. Commissioner Bradford and Commissioner McCool.
Sorry, guys. All right. 523401. Again, not a lot, just a question. Why are car washes in IT?
Yeah, IT has a couple vehicles that they use to drive to the different locations, and cars get dirty. So we wash them.
Okay. I mean, there are just not many departments actually had that.
They may have been maybe serviced by fleet. Some employees actually will, I've heard that, take their cars home and wash them. So I think that's cost effective.
Okay. And then the $109,000 under the Tyler permitting land development and that, what's that $109,000 for new software? I believe, I don't
It's
know.
on
just
page 3,
Which
right?
software is that for? It's $109,000. It says on page 3, Madam Mayor, it says Tyler permitting land development, code enforcement, application support, licensing.
Robert is out today, and he's the best person to answer that question, so we'll have to get back to you on that.
Commissioner, are you done, Commissioner Bradford?
Yeah, because I think we implemented our online permitting a couple years ago, so I wasn't sure if that was like an addition onto it or additional software to make it user-friendly. So,
I think, yeah, Robert's out today, so she'll
Thank you.
contact him. Commissioner McCool?
Yes, thank you. We're going to a different software system, right? Are we still using Tyler Technologies regarding our enterprise, like our water department and stuff, when we go to the new meters? Tyler Technologies still?
We use Tyler, but the meters are different software system.
In relationship to billing, here we go, billing, does it change?
The company that will take care of the meter install will also assist the meters, Neptune meters. They have a program called Neptune 360. And the main thing with making sure is that it integrates well with Munis, which is our main Tyler software. We know that Neptune 360 has been integrated in other cities. We just, as part of the contractor for the install, want to make sure that the contractor ensures that process is seamless, because we don't want a situation where we have problems with the bill when they're changed over. But the Neptune 360 does work with the Tyler and Munis program that we use.
So maybe I misunderstood your question, but we will still be using Tyler for the billing. Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Have we as a municipality looked at, how often do we do an audit of that software system? I know we've been using it for a really, really long time, but do we do auditing of that, or have we entertained a newer platform? I know other municipalities use them, but I also know that there are other municipalities that have other platforms. Can I just get feedback on that? I don't need it today, Mary and team, but I do need that because I'm just going back to the old days when I had problems with Tyler Technologies regarding, and I know the city manager's smiling because he knows what I'm talking about we have crazy water bills sometimes that there's no sense in it, whatever. We can go on either side of that debate. All I'm asking is, have we looked at updating, or do we love Tyler Technologies?
We use Tyler for a lot of different softwares. We use it for accounting. We use it for Energov. We use it for Tyler Parks and Rec, because then we have, its compatibility. Our auditors that come in, Purvis Gray, part of their audit is to take a look at our software and our IT. That's part of the audit they do for internal controls. I'm not sure exactly. I think when we city manager, Mr. Peters has said, the new system for the meters is going to be a big upgrade. So I think maybe that will address your concerns that you've had with readings in the past.
Okay.
The other thing I think is important is we, as part of our emergency management program, process, we have agreements with other municipalities that use the Tyler software.
Okay.
So if for some reason our system goes down, they would be able to assist in getting it up and running. So having other jurisdictions using the same software is critical for our redundancy and emergency purposes.
Okay, and I get that. Can you talk to me about Bluebeam real quick? Because we use Tyler, right, inspection citywide, but is it just the permitting or the plans review? So do we have two platforms, or is Bluebeam, tell me why Bluebeam is different.
Bluebeam is equivalent to Adobe.
Okay.
So it's, from the engineers have told me it's easier to read plans in Bluebeam rather than Adobe.
Steve's shaking his head rapidly, yes, so I'm going to just take that as okay. I just wanted to know, because it just says, is it used by everyone? Is the Bluebeam used by everyone? No?
No, us in finance, we don't use it. We use Adobe, but engineering uses it, and possibly downstairs.
Oh, yeah, Ron's shaking his head. Ron said yes.
I'm sorry, Mary, what'd you say?
Ron is shaking his head. Yes, they use it in planning development.
Okay. Okay. I'm just reading and trying to, you know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm good.
Commissioner Bradford?
While I'm thinking about it, does the software, and I'd like to have that answered, the software for our planning and zoning and permitting, do they have the adequate software now to open locked, secured files that come in from engineers? I asked that question because I was told when a document was sent over that we didn't have in the department a way of opening a sealed engineering plan, which is a little concerning.
It depends on the size of the file, from what I understand, and the nature of the sealing. That has been a challenge in the past.
Is there some way that that can be fixed for you guys? Because an engineer can't unlock those documents.
Yeah, I believe there has to be some way to overcome that.
Okay.
I'm just not versed enough to speak on the mechanics of it.
Okay. Is that in the works of being discussed and looked at?
In fact, we are looking at it. One of the problems that we have had is sometimes the file that is sent in is in a file format that we're not able to read. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, is to get some information out as to what file format everything needs to be submitted so that we're capable of reading them.
All right. Yeah, because we have online permitting now, and when individuals upload those documents, it's not something that can just be unsecurely sent, so.
Yeah, and just, Mr. Danskin reminded me that if we adulterate those documents that are signed and sealed, it basically voids them out.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm bringing this up, because I was told to unseal a document and have it sent by an engineer, which can't happen, ever. It puts your engineer at risk. So I just want to make sure that that department has, and I'm not saying this to get anybody in trouble, Mr. Peters, I want to make sure your department has everything they need with a city that has a lot of commercial development going on. We're going to be getting a lot of large files. So I just want to make sure that they have the tools that they need and the resources. So if I'm hoping, that's why I was asking about that software, if that was a part of that software, just to clarify.
Understood.
Thank you.
If we need to budget for that, please let us know when we get to that department. Okay, Commissioner McCool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a quick question about cameras, city cameras. When we had the last meeting and we talked about this, we have cameras in all of our parks, yes?
I'm not going to sit here and say all of them. We have different formats of cameras. We have cameras that are on the, what I call the wired system.
Yep.
Where you have immediate access to the videos.
Yep.
And then we have standalone camera systems where we physically have to go to the park, go through the hard drive and make a copy of the video. For instance, if we have somebody that breaks into a park, our staff has to go out and give BSO a copy of what's on the hard drive.
Right, we went through this last time when we talked with Park and Rec, and Mr. Manning was here and explained all that. Yep. Commissioner McCool, what did you need on that?
I need to make sure that, I'm sorry, what? Ma'am?
No, what did you, because Mr. Manning, who's not here right now.
I was not here the day Mr. Manning was here, so let me take this opportunity. Part of our meter install is what we call a NAS system. It's a series of towers. I believe there'll be 5 of them in the city. The NAS system is the beginning of a smart city. And we believe that the data from the cameras can be transmitted through the NAS system. I know Robert is checking into that, so to see if that is an option once we are fully integrated with the NAS system as part of the meter program.
Okay. I'm good with that. At our maintenance facilities and other facilities, do we have adequate camera coverage? I'm just going back to the day we had something stolen that was big from one of our facilities, so I understand keeping stuff, I understand this is a slippery slope here asking about this, so my better ask would be that in considering the budget for this year, that we have enough camera coverage to be completely secure, where we have high expensive stuff. If it were up to me, I'd put them on our ins and outs of the city so that we can see who the bad people are that are throwing their garbage out in droves at the entrances and exits. But in doing that also, in budgeting for cameras, make sure they're of enough high quality we can actually read license plates and get photos. That's my only ask. I don't care how you get it done and probably don't need to know that for security reasons, but.
We are working on that.
Okay, that's good enough for me. Thank you.
Okay. Next department, city attorney,
Madam Mayor,
tab 6, yes.
I do have a response on the 109,000 that was asked about regarding the
Yes.
permitting. It's actually for licenses per user and for the iPads and support.
Okay. Commissioner Bradford, you got that right? Okay. Okay, city attorney's budget, tab 6. Any questions? Commissioner Bradford?
So just to clarify, this number, this page right here, it's going to be divvied up amongst other departments? No. She's shaking her head no.
No.
I got one yes, one no.
Okay, we're in the process, okay, the way it has been the last several years, the general fund has a bulk of it, and then the water department has a share, stormwater, what's the other one? Oh, solid waste, and so those 4 departments. So when we get an invoice, it's budgeted in those departments, and then the invoice is divided up by whichever the work was charged to that line item. So we're trying to come up with a better allocation, because it's difficult to budget when we don't know what departments are going to get charged. So, do you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The key thing is it's being allocated according to funds, not departments. Solid waste, stormwater, Deltona water. The other thing is we are planning to come forward to the commission to make a significant change in how we handle our attorneys' costs. A substantial part of the attorney costs are associated with developments. So we're going to be coming to the commission here soon, hopefully before October, with an ordinance or resolution, whichever it needs to be, where any of the costs associated with our attorney for private land development, such as doing a development agreement for Fernandina, doing a impact fee credit project for Fernandina, then the developers of Fernandina would pay the costs for the city attorney's time on those projects. That will reduce the cost to the general fund and the taxpayers. I used to have a sign early in my career: if the developer creates the need, the developer pays for it. Same theory here. So a substantial part of the legal bills are related to development, and we believe it's appropriate for the developers to pay that cost, not the residents of the city. So that will be coming forward. So that will give us a revenue line that will offset a substantial part of the expenditure line in the city attorney.
So then again, the 645 is going to come down. The 645,000, because like you've already started putting it in, these other funds, so this number should go down. Because if it doesn't go down, then we're double dipping.
Well, the expenditure will stay the same. We'll just have a revenue line to offset it. For instance, a lot of the costs in Deltona Water are these impact fee credit agreements. So the developer would be paying that, not the ratepayers in Deltona Water. So
Okay,
that's
so-
what we're planning to do going forward.
So it's going to stay right where it's at, so there will not be an attorney line in each department, each one of these special assessments, right? But there will be a revenue line that will offset it, is that
Correct.
correct?
For the
Yes.
developers.
Okay.
It will still be
Right.
in the other funds. You'll still
Yeah,
have
the other
legal-
funds.
There will still be legal fees in the other funds, like solid waste and
Deltona Water.
Deltona Water.
Okay,
And storm.
so maybe I'm not understanding. Okay, so
Okay.
we're going to have these,
So
and
this-
then we're going to
this
have
is
them in
just your
each
general
department as
fund.
well. So how much is it going up?
This is just your general fund. So you see the 645, that's just your general fund. And then like tab 17 would be stormwater. So if you take a look under tab 17, page 2, you have $20,000 for legal fees. We'll also have a legal line item for
Solid waste.
solid waste
And Deltona.
and, what's the other?
Deltona Water.
Deltona Water.
So
you
how
see
much
that
are all
those
these
four-
legal fees together?
No, you would have to add up the 4 different locations to get the true total value.
940,000.
Thank you. And last year was how much? I guess, look it up, right?
But we have to sum the departments.
While we get that, Commissioner Bradford, do you have any more questions while they look that up?
No, Madam Mayor.
Commissioner McCool?
Okay, how much is the contract for? How much is the contract for? Do you remember for legal services that we signed?
The contract is on an hourly basis.
Okay.
It does not have a value per se, but they charge it by the hour.
Okay, so question, the capital outlay replacement, what is that?
That's
At 9,000.
That's an allocation that's charged to each department for the capital replacement of equipment.
What equipment?
Computers, vehicles, everything that the city purchases to keep the city running, basically.
But that's not capital outlay for legal department.
Yes, it is.
They get charged a portion because they have offices here and they use the equipment here, so
IT allocated, same thing, $10,600.
that's correct.
For instance, Mr. Cole, to give you an extreme example,
I want a reality example, not an
Okay.
extreme example.
we are going to need to do significant improvements to the air conditioning system here at City Hall. And so, if you took the prorated square footage of the city attorney's offices divided by the total City Hall, that ratio of the total amount would be their allocation toward the capital improvement for the air conditioning system. That's how that would work. That's an example. Now, if we have 200 laptops or desk computers in the city, and they have 2 in their offices, they would be paying for 2 divided by 200 of the laptops. So there's capital costs involved that would not be readily apparent. For instance, we're in the process of painting the building and replacing the flooring. The square footage of their offices would be appropriately divided into the total amount for the building, and that would be part of their allocation for capital.
Okay, I'm going to need a little, withstanding this after the fact, but a little, I need a little sit down regarding this, because in my mind, and where I need to get straight is that somebody pays me to use my office space, and I don't pay them to do that. So this is just me. I'm asking for a sit down regarding this, because it's a lot. And if you guys could do something about the whole 666 number, that would be fantastic. For me, I'm just saying that's bad juju for the city. If we can take care of that number, that would be great. Thank you.
Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah, I just have a question too, and Commissioner Bradford brought it up. I want to know what the total cost is that we're going to be paying Fowler and Feeney because when I look at it here, it shows 720 here, and I know you broke it down into different departments. So instead of just having one fee for Fowler and Feeney, like I think it's been in the past, now it's, we got a fee here, we got a fee here, we got a fee here. You know, unless we go through and add them all up, we have no idea what we're paying.
I agree.
Yes, sir.
I mean, do we have a standard contract where it says total dollars that are budgeted for legal services?
Sir, in the presentation that we did on the 3 workshops, there is a spreadsheet in there that shows the 2021 actual, the 21-22 budget, and the proposed
This one.
22-23.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's shown there.
I understand that, but it's not very clear as to, when I'm looking here, the numbers don't jive. I'm having a hard time corresponding numbers. When I look through the budget book and I try to match them back to this, I'm having a hard time making them all work. And I'd like to know, if we have a single document, do we do an annual contract with our city attorney? And do we put a total number of hours in there and a total dollar compensation?
Commissioner Sosa, I think when you look at the legal fees, you will also note in some of the legal fees that we have had multiple investigations that we've had to have outside attorneys come in for, and that falls also under legal, does it not? Under different departments. Am I correct or not?
So far this year, 2022, we have had some legal fees for the HR department for that reason.
I mean, there have been at least 3 investigations that I know of over time.
Is that in this?
Correct?
Is
And
that
are you-
here? No, we're using
No, it's this year.
Though.
It's this year. But are we budgeting for any of that for next year? Is that included in your budget? Are we budgeting for additional legal fees in any of the departments? Because there are things that you have to outsource to not deal with a conflict of interest when you're looking at things internally, and you bring an outside investigator in from another law firm or however that works.
We actually have used money for the 23 budget, we have money for the HR department for outside legal services for anything employment law related.
Okay. So that's budgeted in this,
2023.
okay.
Okay, my question is, do we have a contract written right now that will be signed after the budget's approved?
When is your contract?
We will, but we don't.
When will you have that contract where I have all the, all the information on just 1 or 2 pieces of paper?
Have it this time next month.
What did you say, next month?
No one has an answer?
He said you would have that next
I'm
month.
sorry, I thought this time next month, I would guess.
This time next month? Okay.
So, Mr. Sosa, I guess what exactly is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for the hourly rate and the number of hours?
I'm looking for the total bottom line of what we're budgeting for this position. Is it going to be the $720,000?
No.
Or is it going to be more? What are we actually going to budget for this?
Okay, we're budgeting $940,000.
Okay, now, on here with the spreadsheet you're talking about, this is where I'm saying the numbers don't add up. We've got 720, now we're here at 940. Where does the other 220 come from?
What was different here? 625.
I'm sorry, I did not catch that question.
Well, looking at this and adding everything up, it comes out to 720 between all the departments that are listed. Now, we're told that we're going to have a $940,000 expenditure, so where's the other 220?
The difference between the current year and the proposed year, I believe Mr. Fowler has an increase in the hourly rates, and then part of it is also based on our trend. We've been seeing more legal, mainly because, we have a moratorium. We have...
So did we increase hours? I mean, because we budgeted for X amount of hours to cover all this. Did we increase the number of hours, billable hours?
Yeah.
I think Mr. Fowler needs to answer this question because it was his proposal that he put in that we based everything off of.
Okay, because we're pushing $1 million right now for legal fees.
Say that again?
I mean, we're pushing almost $1 million for legal fees.
Yes,
I think
sir.
a couple
In
years ago,
fact-
that was half of that, a fraction of it.
In fact, next month, we'll be coming to the commission with a budget amendment to cover some of the additional legal costs for this year. So we will have more information for you next month from Mr. Fowler and also from the budget amendment.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner McCool?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. Okay, just very confusing here, you know what I mean, between the capital outlay, between, I mean, I understand it in concept, and between the allocated costs and stuff like that, but I have subcontractors, and my understanding of how that works is not the same as it is a municipality, so I'm asking that we, I need to schedule more time for me to explain to my residents, because almost $1 million contract is a heavy lift. And I understand that we've had an uptake in litigation, right? I understand that we also are doing more development. The increased rate or hours? Is a 7.5% an increase in rate or hours?
Right.
Skip.
Rate.
The rate. So the hourly rate is going up 7.5.
Yeah.
Okay, and that'll be discussed, I guess, as far as the rationalization when we talk about this next month, because I need to understand this to tell, because I'm confused. If I'm confused, my people are confused. You know, and the difference is I just need to see it. We need a longer discussion regarding legal. And can I ask that, please? Because it's an outside contract, that's what I'm saying. I understand when we do consultants, right, I understand that, but I just need a longer conversation to be able to explain to my people this, how we do this, okay? Thank you.
Commissioner Bradford?
I'm the same, totally confused still. So in the line-by-line budget I'm given, it's $666,010, including all taxes. In the budget prior book that I was handed, it says fiscal year 2021, 703 plus, I guess, all the other 728,883. Then we go to 21-22, and it's 720,000, but now we're being told, oh, but wait, that's not correct. And then I have in here 910,000, but wait, I'm being told 940. So when they're talking numbers aren't jiving, numbers aren't jiving. So again, this is a huge increase. I have a hard time seeing, and if you have that number for this year, this says 720. So if this number is higher, we should be queued right now what that number is, not in a month. And is it 910 or is it 940,000?
Yeah, and honestly, I think on the budget overview, it's a spreadsheet error. It should be 940.
Okay, so cross 910 out, it's 940.
Yeah, it should be 940.
Okay, so
And I think it's, and the difference between here and here, I think, is
220.
probably just part of the budget process. These are projections, they change.
Okay. Now, I know we have had some litigations this year, which I'm assuming Mr. Peters is talking about having another meeting to go over those. Obviously, is this budget overview, does that include all attorney fees? That's obviously not just the Fowler law firm. This number, is this all attorney fees? No. No. Do we have that number?
No, this is just Skip Fowler.
Okay.
And then HR has the employment law in their budget.
Holy moly. Can we please get a really good breakdown on this? I'm kind of bouncing with everybody else. I mean, to you guys, I know it makes sense, and I don't mean to be difficult, but, you know, to somebody that doesn't play with numbers as much as y'all do, it just breaking it down a little bit better would help out. And I would like to know overall cost, total cost. I would like to see Fowler's cost, and I would like to see all the additional costs we have paid this year in additional attorney fees with additional representations we've had to have. Does that make sense?
Ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Commissioner McCool?
That's what I was going to ask for, is that how much for the total outside attorney fees are we going to, are we, and not only that, to understand the correlation, if when we have outside attorney, do we also pay the fee for conjunction of our legal services to be involved in that? When we turn over a litigation, does the outside attorneys take care of it, or is there also an overlay of our inside legal fees also? So not now, but I just want to understand, because if we have a third outside party, does our legal representation oversee or get paid also on top of this? I need to understand that correlation as well. If that could be prepared, that would be great.
Okay, so staff, you have your task ahead of you, a breakdown of legal services, a breakdown of additional legal services outside the scope of the Fowler-Feeney contract. I think, commissioners, you can understand the breakdown for miscellaneous operating expenses, transfer for replacement, equipment replacement of computers, and allocation for IT. That is in every department, and that is done so that each department's budget reflects use of city services internally. Because otherwise, one department is going to get dinged for all the equipment replacement, all the capital services that are done, and all the equipment and everything that's replaced. And then then your question is going to be, why is one department getting dinged for all of this? And when you look at enterprise funds, for a long time, this was not done. When I first came here, that was not done in terms of having the enterprise funds charged for the things that the general fund provides. And it needs to be done so, because an enterprise fund is self-sufficient, and if you cannot, if an enterprise fund is using the city attorney for something, and the general fund is subsidizing that, it's not right. Simply in the case of Deltona Water, where you have a percentage of ratepayers that you have Del North. So the Del North people are subsidizing Deltona Water in terms of legal fees and in terms of other outlay. So this is why you have to put this in your enterprise funds, because those are different ways of paying for that particular fund. So stormwater, if there's a lawsuit, which we've had multiple issues with people complaining that the city has done damage or other stormwater issues, and when you have to have a legal consult, the stormwater fee is not paying for that. The general fund is paying for that, and it needs to come out of the stormwater fund, which is funded by a different set of ratepayers. And that is why you have to do that and allocate all the appropriate costs to the appropriate departments. Otherwise, general fund subsidizes all the enterprise funds. So the true cost of legal, you might say, is one contract, but that's not the case, because you have city employees up there that help to do legal work, and they need computers, and they need office space, and we're paying for all of that. So a breakdown in outside legal, I would also ask the staff to look at, when you look at the hourly breakdown for the city attorney's office, I know this is kind of maybe not a big ask, but I would like to know on what items has legal spent the most time. For a long time, it was public records. It was a huge, huge cost of the amount of hours legal was spending on public records and straightening that out. Not necessarily getting the records per se, but getting policies done. And every time you have a policy, and every time we have another ordinance, and every time we have another thing and that comes up, legal has to go through all of that. So if you have any exceptional items that legal spent a lot of time on, please let us know that, because if there's an ordinance that had to be run over and over and over again, that's a lot of work that we have to do. So that would help us, I think, understand where the hours are going. So we're good with the city attorney's office. That is the task for staff to bring that forth, correct, Commission? Yes? Mr. King, Commissioner King, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good.
No? Okay, next tab, planning, tab 7. Commissioners, any questions or comments on tab 7? Mr. Paradise, we're getting a GIS analyst. How far are we in that?
We have not advertised for that position yet.
Okay, that's budgeted though, correct?
We're requesting that it be approved as part of this budget. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you have that under new GIS analyst budgeted. I was just wondering where we were with that. And let's see, one other question I have, tab 53101, rental fee consulting, that is ProChamps.
Yeah, that was, we were anticipating using ProChamps. I'm not sure if that's going to come to fruition or not.
Okay, but it's budgeted. If it's not them, will it be someone else?
We do not know at this juncture.
What are your other options?
At this point in time, we'd have to hire probably another outfit to provide some sort of dashboard services to display, the status of the rental activities out there in the city.
I hope that we're looking at what other municipalities do and what they have. There are a lot of municipalities that have this and have a process that they go through. So, Commissioner Bradford, Commissioner McCool.
I was dittoing exactly what you were saying. The 100,000 is the analyst that you're pretty close on. That's what it's going to be, budgeted-wise, and then the rental fee consultant. So, can you explain a little bit more in detail this rental consulting fee? I know we haven't had a meeting on this yet. I know is this part of that whole
rental ordinance?
The rental ordinance that we're looking at and haven't passed yet?
It is part of that initiative, yes, ma'am.
And what exactly will they be doing?
What the anticipation is there will be, are you talking about the consultant or the ordinance itself?
So can we cover both, just so there's full transparency with
Yes,
individuals looking at these two line items and wanting to know what they are?
Yes, what we're hoping to use the consultant for is to kind of organize and archive some of the information that would be needed to ensure the long-term viability of the rental ordinance. Now, the rental ordinance, the way it's envisioned is there would be an annual fee for these properties that are rented out here within the city. And there also would there be an inspection event as well associated with each property that these property owners would be responsible for producing and then giving to the city.
Okay, so we're putting something in before we've even approved it. We're talking about charging landlords monthly for their rentals.
It would be an annual fee.
Annual fee, like a BTR, like we used to have, similar. So here's my only concern with this. I agree we're putting it in, but we haven't even approved this yet, or it hasn't even come before the commission. And we are already having a major spike in rents. We have a major crisis with rental amounts going up. And now we're going to impede more rental fees on landlords that guess where they're going to pass that on to. They're going to pass that on to the tenants. So I understand what we're doing at this point. It's in there. I guess everybody else is pretty much in consensus on it. My problem is we put something in a budget that has not even been presented to the commission. That's just my own personal.
But if we don't put it in the budget, we won't have the money to move forward with it if we approve it.
If we approve it, but when is this even coming before the commission?
The latest is it will be later this summer, certainly be before October, the ordinance itself.
Okay, so this 50,000 covers a software, or what is it exactly?
It would be for the consultant to, again, build the database and to maintain it.
So we're going to hire a consultant to build a database for the rental?
That was the initial plan, yes.
I don't know, just to me, it seems like something that would have been under IT for, as far as software development and that. Okay.
Commissioner McCool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was asked about the same thing. I've been a very big advocate for this ordinance regarding rental fees for a number of reasons. I understand the appearances of it being an impediment to rental, but these are the other impediments to think about. We now have, I would say, around in the neighborhood of $500,000 of unpaid water bills from renters leaving. That's not the landlord's fault. However, it is a reoccurring issue that could be abated with the landlord charging up front for this because people run out on their water bills. The abatement fees that we have had regarding rental property, cleaning up rental property, also the safety for tenants, because I can't tell you how many buildings I have gone in that landlords should not be allowed to rent. It's disgusting, and I know that at least 3 of us up here on the dais have been in these places, and without any ordinance in place, we have no way to protect the life and safety of residents. This will allow an inspector to go in every year to inspect these homes to make sure that they are in proper condition to be rented to people, because there are people that are paying outrageous amounts of rent to live in places where the ceilings are coming down, where the rodent infestation is so horrible I wouldn't wish it on an enemy, and there are general life and safety concerns. So I am for this ordinance 110%. What I had also is the impact fee consultant fee. Is this ongoing? Are we done with that? And where are we at with the impact fee? And are we going to have to budget money again this year for this?
There's going to be a presentation.
You eat anything?
I just did.
Or would you?
Okay, go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry.
Got a break to you somewhere?
There,
I think Commissioner King, your audio is on. We can hear you.
yeah, the plan is to have a presentation on impact fees July 11th.
Okay.
We've got a study draft out there, and we're going to go ahead and trot it out.
Okay. But let me get back, because I was just thinking of that when I was thinking about this. How far are we from the presentation of the ordinance to City Commission regarding the rental fee for the landlords?
I indicated earlier in talking to Ms. Siegel George, we anticipate bringing it later this summer, certainly before the end, before October.
Okay. With that being said, also, I know for a fact on my block, two situations where you have people claiming homestead exemptions, but yet people are living in the homes and the people are not paying the appropriate amount of taxes. So there are pluses and minuses. I believe there to be more pluses to this for the life and safety and long-term monetary implications for this, to have this. Do we understand, did we talk about what this fee is going to be every year, annual fee is going to be for the landlord?
Because is it a reason for talking about this for the budget? Because
yes.
Okay. Because until it comes before us, do we have any idea of that?
We in the budget that we did during the workshop, we included, I believe it's in the 3rd year, revenue coming from the rental ordinance, and that was based on a fee of $250 a year. That would be done as a business tax receipt. Mm-hmm. And just to clarify for the record, the inspection would be through a certified home inspector every other year.
Okay.
You good, Commissioner McCool?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Thank you.
Commissioner
wait, one other question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Planning services, there are 2 positions open in planning services, and I need to understand, is that GIS position included in that, or are there 2 plus GIS?
There are 1 plus GIS, 1 being a planner 2.
Okay. Is there a plan to fund this or to fill this position?
Yeah, I think you will see this position be filled here within the next year. It's just kind of tough now in the hiring area in the planning field.
So the plan is to fill both of these positions during this budget year?
What I would prefer to do is concentrate on the GIS position at this juncture.
Okay, so then, okay, in general, can you answer this, and I won't have to ask this for everyone. In general, if it's budgeted for the year, are we pulling this out of the budget if there's no plans to fund the position? The GIS is in at $95,000. If we have another position open, is that funding held aside in the budget for this year?
I'm not sure what the mechanics are on that. I don't think the money is held in reserve, so to speak. I'm not sure what the accounting of that is.
Mary?
Well, you have one vacancy right now, Ron?
Yes, ma'am.
So the vacancy is budgeted in 2022. The GIS position is not budgeted right now. It's budgeted in 2023. But you intend to fill the GIS position first?
That would be the goal, yeah, just based on the immediate needs, yes, ma'am.
So because there's a vacancy, those funds have been unspent, so he probably has funds available in his budget.
Is that true across the board?
Well, it just depends. Yeah, generally, we have vacancies throughout the year, so there are funds available.
Okay.
This year is a little bit tighter than in the past because the $15 an hour raise. So, but how long has the position been vacant? You've had vacancies throughout your year?
Yeah, this has been vacant or on the books for probably a little bit over a year now.
I mean, we'd have to look at his budget to say for sure, but more likely than not, he has funds available in his salaries line for this position.
Okay, because I'm just looking at human capital across the board, 55 positions, right, at a budget of $4 million, right? I mean, across the board, not just in your department, Ron, so that's what I'm trying to get my brain around there. If those positions are budgeted, is that $4 million budgeted for those 55 positions?
I'm not sure which 55 positions you're referring to.
Okay. Stacy, could you
Yes,
chime in
ma'am.
here?
So that was a point in time. When you had asked for that number, she gave you that point in time. So that's for the current fiscal year, 2022.
Okay.
So that's, monies were budgeted for each of those positions, but that does not necessarily mean that those are intended to be filled as of right now. So we may have gone into the 22 budget year with the anticipation that we would fill some of those, but we found that we didn't need to fill all of those. I don't have an exact number for you. And then the second column that was provided to you, I believe.
Sum total. Sum total of personnel.
Okay. Right. I have to think back about what those numbers were. So that was point in time, but that did not remove frozen positions for 2023.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's difficult to take a look at, really. We could take a look at the numbers again. Really, what is it are you looking for?
What I'm looking for is, do we have, a simple question, do we have $4 million floating around in untapped human capital? I have the paper. What I'm saying is, there's 55 positions, no, $4 million. Is that $4 million budgeted?
Well,
now?
again, that's point in time. So
right.
there could be one position that October 1st of 2021 was filled, okay? That person left until it took, the amount of time to fill that position. So yes, that's unspent money in the budget.
Okay.
But does it total that? Boy, that would be,
I don't know. I can't answer that either.
Yeah, that's what I have on my paper.
But when was the paper produced?
that was point in time.
Point in time, as of,
And they can only, and the only way that they were able to look at that quickly to give you that number was total budget. So it was
Okay.
total budget for 2022.
Okay.
But if I could just address one of the things, so the GIS position that you're asking for, I'm not sure why it's showing up on the budget like this, but it's being pulled out separately from just the solid salaries and wages. Most of the departments, you're just going to see salary and wages. So whether that's an increase or a decrease in staff, you're not going to see those pulled out.
okay. Question answered. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Bradford?
Okay, two more. Carryover traffic counts, what is that? And, because that's carrying over from last year and future, I mean, are we ever going to get it done?
Yes, we would like to move forward with that. The reason why it was put on hold initially because of COVID, and we were looking to see if the traffic patterns would come back to, some sort of pre-pandemic event.
Normal.
Yeah, and, just kind of basing that on anecdotal observation.
Okay, and then we have land development, code review, scoping to get feedback from the community regarding the LDC. That literally was $100,000 last year, and it's up to $400,000. That's an increase of $300,000. Do you have a firm that you've already looked at, or where did we come to $400,000 for that?
As a result of the moratorium that was recently passed, there's a public scoping element that's part of that moratorium that we're supposed to initiate and complete within that first initial 6 months moratorium. We have an RFP out on the street for that public scoping, and it is due tomorrow. And I'm very excited about, the responses that we'll hopefully get.
So is this number based on some of the stuff you've gotten back already?
Yes.
Feedback? Okay.
Yeah, and we're looking at, the evaluation and appraisal report update to the comprehensive plan. We're also looking to do a couple of corridor plans as well.
Okay, so that's a pretty accurate number then, based on last year's 100,000.
I believe that it's based on best available data.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with regard to the market as it is today.
We're anxious to find out as well. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to the next tab, tab 8, construction services, sorry. Any questions on construction services? Commissioner Bradford?
Don't have a question, I just have a statement. We reduced $115,000 from not using Universal. I'm guessing that's what that was?
Yeah, outside consultants.
So we reduced it $115,000, and you guys gained a lot of respect from people out there. Congratulations.
Like you said, Carl and the inspector crew and the people back in construction services have really stepped up and done a great job on this.
No, I've heard a lot of great praise from the department, so that's awesome.
Okay, anyone else? And we will move on to the next, we already did HR, so we'll move on to general government, tab 10. Commissioner Bradford, are you still on the thing, or, okay. Yeah.
Sorry. As you can tell, I spent a whole weekend of doing nothing but budget. Postage, let's cover that one real quick. And refresh my memory, Mr. Peters, we had discussed on our mailings for various departments to outsource that. Has that been done? We were going to outsource like our water bill mailings and other departments. I thought we had discussed that before, where, you had looked at somebody and they would be doing mailings for us. Has that been done or no? We talked about it a year ago.
That would be in Deltona Water's budget, not general fund.
Okay, so it was only Deltona Water that we that we sourced it out. All right. Let's go down. Electrical services, yes, we got a maintenance contract on there. The elevators. What kind of shocks me on that is it says 2 elevators, preventive maintenance contracts at $1,000 a month. Have we sent out an RFP on that? Because I'm going to tell you, I may only have 1 elevator, but that is literally 4 times the amount that I'm paying. And my services includes them coming out, doing quarterly, or doing the regular maintenance on it. And if there's anything wrong with my elevator, they literally pay for the repairs. So just curious, and it also goes into your renewal as well. This cost is literally I might have to say ridiculous, but it's ridiculous if that's what we're being charged.
What I will do, if we have ABM on contract right now, I will discuss with them what the service charges should be for elevator services.
Yeah, because there's several out there, and that is absolutely crazy. We also discussed AC repairs being needed because we had lack of maintenance on machines. I looked at prior year's budgets, and according to prior year's budgets, we've had AC, HVAC AC. We've had HVAC in the budget to do preventative maintenance. So if preventative maintenance was not being done by these organizations that we paid, I would think they would be held liable for us to be like, oh, we're not maintaining, our units are bad, and they need to be replaced.
We are looking at the current methodology that we use for AC. We do not have nearly the amount that we should be. We will be, as part of ABM's report later this summer, you're going to hear some very astounding numbers with regard to our AC. Essentially, 44% of our air conditioning in the city needs to be replaced due to lack of maintenance and age, mainly. So we will be having a very comprehensive review of our entire AC program when ABM comes back with their report later this summer.
But according to our prior year's budgets, we've had a maintenance program. So was the company that was supposed to be doing the maintenance program fallen behind?
Or was there a company that was supposed to do that, or was that budgeted for and staff was supposed to go ahead and get contractors in to do that? Because that can work both ways.
Yeah, it looks back 2 years, and it's been in the budget. So what happened here?
It's my understanding the contract that we had is not the type that I would have done. I would have had the AC contractor coming out on a regular schedule to do the preventative maintenance, change the filters and the things of that nature. That was not done. I think it was on a call basis rather than a schedule basis. And that's one of the things that we're looking to change going forward.
Yep.
Okay, let's hope this is a major lesson learned. It's going to be a very costly maintenance.
But Commissioner, it's possible that because the funds were budgeted, it's possible that they were just not spent and just rolled back in.
They would have rolled back into the fund balance at the end of the year.
Yeah, but it's not going to benefit us if we
No, of
he's
course
talking
it doesn't.
replacing AC units. now.
Exactly. And that's why I
So
asked, because
major.
just because it's budgeted doesn't mean that they called somebody and somebody did a bad job. It just means that there's a possibility that they just never even called somebody and just didn't follow through on maintenance. And now we are where we are.
Well, we did pay ThermoServe several times during 2022 so far, and the year's not over yet.
To come out and do maintenance?
Yes. So, I mean, as far as what they did, I can't say that, but I know we paid them about 5 times.
See, that's, to me, that's holding somebody accountable for a contract and for that. Also, just a recommendation, I've went to the bathrooms here. And I'm assuming this is going to be part of ABM, we talk about our test our water quality and conserving water conservation, I guess is the word I want, conservation. And when I have to stand there and hold the toilet for 5 minutes to get it to flush, we might want to look at our own toilets, getting those replaced. So I know we've got some budget in there. Carpet in the first and second floor City Hall, that $150,000 was removed. That was in last year's budget.
I believe it's being done this year. They're painting City Hall right now, and I don't know exactly where we are with the flooring, but I believe it's been working its way through
The flooring has been
procurement.
let, and we are making selections on the flooring. I know we're looking at the carpet here in the commission chambers, so that will be forthcoming here pretty soon.
Okay, it says install carpet on first and second floor City Hall, 0.
Are you talking about this year?
$150,000 removed.
Because this is 23's budget, it's going to be done in 2022.
Okay,
it
so
doesn't
you're
need to be
putting in
funded.
2022 budget.
Yes, it's in 2022's budget.
A lot of these items are items that are in the current year budget, and they're put down here again, but they'll show a 0 next year because the money was spent this year.
Okay, but we've got, if we're doing it this year, I mean, we're talking about bringing money back, there's $140,000 for City Hall to paint it. So if we're doing it this year, that 140,000 don't need to
It's
be.
140 exterior for next year. We're
Exterior.
painting the interior this year.
Okay, so this is being done correctly, all right. Cleaning the roof, that's going to be next year as well. There's a lot of money here.
Once again, maintenance hasn't been done, unfortunately.
And again, this is where under 524701, it says timesheets, envelopes, and letterhead, a repeat from the other one I was, telling you guys about earlier. But I honestly think there's items in this one that we could probably work on bringing down. This just
Well,
seems
we're
like,
really hoping to get the timesheets done.
yes, that would be
Because,
awesome. Well, that's not a big
listen,
deal.
you're talking to finance here. We're tired of timesheets. We're,
Paper,
yeah.
I feel ya.
It's an
I feel you.
antiquated
It's been a
method.
struggle,
Then you just got to
but-
get them to log in and actually do it.
Well, it's, it sounds so easy, just get rid of paper, but there's a lot of logistical things to getting this correct. We've got people out in the field. Not everyone has access to a computer. There's obstacles.
Right. No,
But we're
I'm
working
looking at
towards it.
I'm looking at all the repairs and maintenance budget. So, I'd like to see as much as we possibly can done this year to get that out of the next year's budget to help us, hit that reduced millage. Just reading my notes, guys, sorry. Postage stayed the same. Do we not anticipate a postage increase? I thought I heard that rumor that the stamps were going up again, so.
Well, that's the other thing that we're anticipating getting. We like to stop sending out so many paper checks, go to ACH.
Me too.
But that's in the works for next year.
So is that what that 35,000 is? That's sending checks? What other stuff are we sending out? That's a lot of postage.
In postage? I can't, this is general government, so it's every department, not just, it's a cost that's shared by all the departments. So I can't really speak to the other departments. I'm sure the clerk sends a lot of things out.
Okay, because I thought I saw postage in a couple other departments as well. Okay, thank
We
you.
may have to send letters out to the residents depending on what happens with some of our assessments next year. That's something that, so we may not want to, we're just hoping that,
And the
it's
seating
hard to
inside-
budget exactly, and it's not really a significant number to, you know what I mean?
Right.
How much time do you want to spend to figure out $2,500? We could spend $2,500 micromanaging it, I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious or anything. We just have to go with what's the most material.
What are we seating? The seat inside, is that our landscape here at City Hall? 5,000? 52313 says miscellaneous improvements, 5,000 seat inside.
We usually do the ryegrass and everything for the winter time. We usually do that out here.
Right, that's here, that's what I'm saying, that's City Hall, correct? Because I know we
Yes.
did it last year, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, no more questions on this department. We'll move to the next one, code
Sorry, I
compliance.
just had one question.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just popped up. Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
I just have a question on the transfer outs. Could you explain those to me, the 535,020 to 3.2 million? Could you just explain that to me, please?
Okay.
Are you talking page 6, sir?
Yes, page 6.
Okay. Probably the easiest to explain, the 3.24 million. If you look at your budget at a glance, okay, we have a line item here that transfers 324,000 out. This one is money that's going to be transferred out to the Parks Department. Does that make any sense? It's just a way that we move funds from one department to the
To
other.
the next. So right now, in this, what we're saying is we're going to transfer out of the general fund to stormwater, 535,000. Is that going to be for the right-of-way mowing that we've been taking out of stormwater?
Yes.
Okay, and basically the 3.2 million for the parks, that's basically for that placeholder that we've been talking about for anticipated improvements?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, code compliance, tab 11. Commissioners, any questions?
It's expensive.
None?
Madam Mayor, just real quick, the 30,000 for the abatement, we're charging now we are charging the homeowners, the residents, the fees back, right?
There are two ways that we manage those fees. One is to lien the property with the hope or expectation that when the property sells or refinances, that the city would be made whole. The other scenario is what we did here a number of weeks ago, which is the non-ad valorem tax approach. And then a third scenario too is, the city may or has the option to forgive some of these liens as property changes hands or under certain circumstances.
Okay, so that's why you budgeted 30,000.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCool?
Yes, I want to know on that, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to know on that abatement also, how do we enforce with the commercial? Does this go for commercial and private, or is this just for the private abatement?
This could be any property in the city that, whether it's commercial or residential.
Okay, talk to me about how we are, and for budgetary reasons, I'm asking, right, if we need outside help, so that's why I'm asking for budgetary reasons. How are we enforcing with commercial these abatements? How are we recovering that money?
Right now, it's always been with liens. But in moving forward in the future, probably going to start to look at these non-ad valorem approach as well to be applied to those commercial non-homesteaded properties.
Okay, and can you just go one step further, because people want to understand that? How do we collect the money?
How the non-ad valorem tax approach works is, first of all, we work with the property appraiser because they have a role in these tax abatements to gain concurrence from the Volusia County property appraiser that they will entertain these levies or these going on the tax bills. If the property appraiser is okay with that, and the two we've done in the past, we've gotten cooperation. But what happens is those abatement amounts appear on the tax bill, and it is incumbent upon the owners of these properties to pay them as part of their property taxes. If they do not pay, then they will be sold at the tax certificate auction, and investor X will pay for the taxes. And it usually takes about a year for the city to potentially be made whole on those. Again, we've only done this twice. This is kind of a new approach that the city has endeavored upon.
Which, after watching the city try to clean up the city, I wholeheartedly endorse any methodology that the city must take in order to do that, especially with commercial, as we try to clean up the city. So thank you for that.
Okay, any other questions? Then next up will be tab 12, law enforcement services. Any questions on tab 12? Commissioner McCool?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to ask regarding we've broached this regarding level of service as we have an expanding community and population. If we have talked about that or wherein that conversation comes up, we have added more taxpayers to the roll. We have added more domestic situations in our city, so it adds on top of. We continue to have traffic issues. So did we have that conversation? I know that I had a leading conversation with the sheriff and with Captain McDaniel that was going to roll over. Did we have any observations or any talks regarding level of service as far as that goes? Or is it the city's position that we're happy with the level of service that we currently receive and find it adequate?
Ms. Nicole, in conversation with Captain McDaniels, we believe the level of service in the city is excellent. We will continue to monitor as we grow the need for law enforcement. I can share with you that we get one huge benefit from the Sheriff's Department. That's on the administrative side because of the relationship with the county. They did express some concern that depending on how the county budget goes this year, that we may see a fairly significant increase next year because they won't be able to offset that cost to the county as much as they do now. So that's the one thing that we're going to have to watch for next year. But so far, we have not had a need to increase the staffing level.
Okay, and what did we do with the money last year that they returned? Did it go back into our law enforcement fund? What did we do with that money?
That money went into municipal complex in the capital account, and I believe that there was discussion about using that for the training ground. They were going to partner with the fire department, but I think that's all in the early stages.
Okay.
Commissioner Bradford?
May I ask how much money that was? Close to $1 million?
I think it was about 700,000. Do you guys remember about that? 7 or 8, 740 maybe? I just don't remember exactly. I can check though.
Okay, so we had an amount of around $700,000 returned to the city.
Correct.
I did have a discussion with the sheriff as well, and they have had an increase in the number of calls, the number of traffic stops, and, I don't know, Commissioner McCool, I'm kind of on the same boat as you are. We're doing a lot of responding to calls that these guys, they're overwhelmed. They are busy. They are swamped. I don't know, different people you ask are going to tell you that. So could we definitely use more boots on the ground? I 100% would love to see more boots on the ground. We've got more businesses, much larger businesses. We've got a lot more traffic. I know just in District 2, the amount of increase in traffic that we've had with the new commercial corridor coming in is significant. There's an increase in traffic, wrecks, fatalities, and incidents just on Howland alone. They will tell you that Howland is like the craziest road at this point. I would be all for seeing what it would be to take the money we got back, which I'm a little disappointed that I heard we got money back another source rather than hearing it from my own staff. To give us the option to say, do we want to put this $700 to $1 million back towards our law enforcement and safety of our residents, or do we want to put it where? I would be for seeing what the sheriff would recommend as far as what we can get out of that to kind of assist them with what they got going on right now. And I don't know if I'm the only person, so.
Commissioner McCool?
And just in talking about that, before I had the meeting with them, I looked at other levels of service for different municipalities, and I'm sure that we'll have that conversation looking into this. But I, also have input regarding the amount of traffic officers that we have at night during the daytime. And I think that we need to have that conversation again regarding that, because that's what the people are saying. And when I say that, that is my number one complaint that I get from my residents regarding that. So if we could just please entertain that. I know that we said that we would do that in talking about levels of service, comparing them to other municipalities. When I did my comparison, it was just different, but I would like to hear what the experts say and feedback from our community. I mean, that's why I made the request for the GIS mapping that residents could input so that we could see visually where problems were. So in getting a GIS analyst, I don't know what their job's going to be, but it's just one of the things to think about. And community response would be good input for us as well if we could poll as a city and ask our residents. I'm just asking us to ask what they think. And listen, I understand that there's a lot more that goes into making these decisions, but residents are really concerned about this. And, the night, we joked, the night that the Sheriff's Department came and made the presentation of the check, I made a joke about it going back into more officers. So if we could take a look at that, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
So, Commissioners, I'm hearing from two commissioners here that you want more deputies. So the cost per deputy is what, $120,000 a year all-inclusive, correct? About $120,000. So a $700,000 refund, because you can't just use that one time, because every single year you're paying the $120,000 plus an increase, would give us about 5 years if we budgeted one deputy for 5 years. So you take $700,000 and you divide that by the 120, give or take, and prorate an increase. You're looking at hiring one extra deputy for 5 years, or two extra deputies for 2.5 years. And then the question becomes, what do you do with that? Do you say, bye-bye deputies, our refund is gone? Or do you continue to budget that? Because this is what we're here for today. We've pulled out $52,500, and we've entered $75,000 so far. This is what we've done to date. So we've already we've already added more than we've removed. And now, if we're going to talk about more deputies, if I did a poll of all the residents, of course they want more law enforcement. But if you're going to do that, and this is why we hire consultants, because everybody complains, why do you need a consultant? Why do you need a consultant? Because consultants bring out the facts and the reality and present things that are comprehensive, not emotional. And I would like more deputies. I would like to have more law enforcement. I would like to have 5 more ambulances. I would like to have, a lot more things in this city. I'd like to have every road paved. I'd like to do more community events. But there's a cost to all that. And if you ask a question, what do the residents want, then you have to conversely ask that question, what do you want to not have? Because we only have a finite amount of money, and we're looking at a millage rate that we're not even sure of what we're looking at yet, and we can't strip our reserves. It's impossible to strip our reserves. So when you look at the cost, especially when you look at the cost of a deputy, that's one person for $120,000 a year. You have to budget for that for an infinite amount of time. So Commissioner Bradford? Commissioner McCool, are you still on the board?
Yeah, I'm still on. With that being said, Madam Mayor, one of the things discussed with when I had the discussions was that it's not always necessarily hiring them for long-term, but it is hiring for monthly special operations or something like that, which is another way to think about that, where you get a service without paying those long-term benefits. And we talked about that as an option also. So it's not always about hiring, keeping on the extra personnel. It's about coming in and setting up those situations for either drug sweeps, which they do already, but I mean doing special traffic operations on perhaps a monthly basis. You're in and you're done, or biweekly, whatever that looks like. I just want to talk about, what that looks like.
Commissioner Bradford?
Okay, so can you explain to me, Mr. Peters, what you were just saying, how our law enforcement services are going to go up if we've received a refund? So you're saying we're going to not have a refund and it's going to go up? Help me understand what you just said. I'm confused. You said we were going to be increasing the fees.
I just want to say that the refund that we got, that was a sort of an unusual event that occurred when they switched from being under the county with Amendment 10, now they're their own agency. And there was a period of time where they allocated their costs because they weren't being charged as much by the county, and then the city received a refund. So I don't anticipate we're going to get that every year. And just as far as best practices, it's really not good financial practice to pay for reoccurring costs with a non-reoccurring revenue. It's just not done. We'll run out of money.
No, I agree.
And just to reiterate what Mary just said, if you recall, the sheriff went from being a county elected official to a constitutional official. So it changed the manner in which a lot of the accounting was done between the sheriff's department and the county. It's my understanding that $700,000 was a one-time thing. Typically, when you get a one-time benefit, you typically want to spend that money on capital projects because that's a one-time thing. You don't want to take, one of the, if y'all recall back in 10, 15 years ago, the federal government gave money for cities to hire more police officers. But I think the funding was only for 3 years. And then after 3 years, the cities had to pick it up, and a lot of cities ended up getting rid of those police officers because they couldn't afford the long-term cost. So, the $700,000 was a one-time benefit. If we want to look at increasing the personnel in the sheriff's department, then we need to come up with a continuing source of money to be able to pay that cost, or we have to have a continuing reduction in cost to pay that cost.
And I wasn't talking about using the $700,000. So I guess my question is this: when did we receive the $700,000? Was that recent?
November.
September?
November.
Okay.
It was.
So you haven't heard of any funds being returned to you this year or a reduction?
No, and they've indicated that we're probably not going to get a refund.
Okay. So until I confirm our source, I'm going to shut up on that one. What I was more or less likely stating was that if we were going to be getting reductions, and it is determined that our what we've been paying for over the last few years is going to be reduced, I would like to see us keep our level of increase the level of service based on what it is. I don't know how to say it in other words without, like I said, I'm going to do some additional research on this from my source. We'll leave it at that.
Commissioner McCool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the reality of that also is there are two schools of thoughts. It's about what we actually get, what we pay for. We get excellent, excellent service. I'm talking about the amount of service. How many officers do we have per person, right? That's what I'm looking at, and that's what I want to understand. I'm just asking to continue to have the conversation with that. How many sheriffs do we have on traffic patrol at night here? Those kinds of questions, and if it meets national level of service, that's all I'm asking for.
I think what I'm hearing up here, Mr. Peters, is that a joint workshop at some point with the Sheriff's Department to understand what we're doing, what level of service, what are they doing in terms of crime. I know that they also get grants and have other agencies come in to do, sweeps isn't the right word, but something like that. So if you could schedule that at some point, I think that would help, Commissioner McCool, Commissioner Bradford. that at least we could have that discussion about level of service and then look at what we can budget for that, whether it be what you're talking about, ma'am, it's, monthly or bi-monthly traffic sweeps or whatever.
And Madam Mayor, make no mistake, the service that we get is second to none. I will tell you that, second to none. And I'm by no way an alarmist. However, I just want to look at that with the increase, because I don't know if we've increased our force since we've added the number of people that we have. I just want to make sure that that's matching, you know what I mean, Madam Mayor? Matching what we have coming and growing into, and are we creating any exceptional events here with with the growth also? So that's all I want to take a look at, and thank you for wording that so eloquently. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have a note here to reach out to the sheriff about a possible workshop.
Yes.
I will remind you all that usually on a monthly basis, I believe, Captain McDaniel provides the traffic operations information, and it will have in there where they were doing a, I don't call it a sweep, but they were there picking up people with, that are unlicensed and outstanding warrants and what have you. So they do that, but I will reach out to the sheriff about a possible workshop.
Thank you. And there's also ComStat, too, that we can go to. So, okay, we're going to go ahead.
Mayor, I'd just like to, Julia just looked it up. The amount of the refund was $864,000
Perfect.
in November.
Okay, so it's getting close to taking a break, but we will go ahead with tab 13, which begins the fire department. And tab 13 is the fire administration, correct, Mr. Peters?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions as we begin on fire administration first? And we'll see how far we get to go to the next. I just had one on page 4 of fire administration. The when we're looking at the top line, building renovations and upkeep, is that station 61 that we're looking at?
Yes, that's going to be 61 on the admin side.
Okay, perfect. And that's the all flooring, and then the building renovations and upkeep, the 2-bathroom renovations to ADA compliance, is that also 61?
Yep.
Both of those. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bradford?
Sorry, I couldn't find my button. It was buried in papers. $1 million for overtime?
Not for the admin side, that's for the operations side.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're just doing admin right now.
Yeah, we'll just go through, operations will begin after we get through the admin.
Okay.
Any other questions on fire department admin? And you have this one. That'll take you up to page 6, and then page 7. And then after that, on the same tab, we go to fire operations. And that starts over on a page 1 again. Do we have that correct? You have that right, Commissioner Bradford? Does everyone on that correct page? Okay? Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's ask that question again. $1 million in overtime.
So that was discussed at our last meeting when Chief Snyder was here. A lot of that came down to the workers' comp, the FMLA, and the COVID. So I think we're just being prepared in case things don't change this year.
That's a heart attack right there. I'm sorry. And I just have to ask, hiring an individual or a flex or something, is it going to help reduce this, 1 or 2? Like if you brought, I know you had 5 people, or how many people did you have budgeted? Didn't you guys have?
We had asked for the 6 additional for that new rescue.
You were having just 6 new for the rescue. Would that have, we discussed this, that's not going to help alleviate some of this pain on this $1 million overtime, correct?
It wouldn't, because it would be an additional unit staff, so we would want to maintain that level. So we were running roughly about a $500,000, which was originally budgeted this year, and that takes into account FMLA, workers' comp, some sort of extenuating circumstances. Obviously, this year, even with COVID, we have had several spikes that drive that up, that cost up. We've seen about 4 times the amount of workers' comp and FMLA outage in this budget. So that $1 million is a trending line from this year's budget that we're moving off of. Our hopes is that the spike that we've seen this year in 2022 will go back more to a normal time frame. So it's really a compounding effect. COVID obviously has an impact, but we've seen, again, about 4 times the amount of leave reference FMLA, workers' comp related than we would normally see or we hadn't been seeing trending. So I don't have a good explanation of why all those things are occurring, but it's that compounding effect accumulatively.
There's no ideas that anybody has to do something flex-wise, I mean, to eliminate some of that, I'm not going to say burden, but it is. It's a burden. It's a stress. It's
Commissioner Bradford, Chief Snyder and I had a long conversation about this, and one of the concerns is we have found from a hiring standpoint that it's much more advantageous to hire paramedics and train them to be fire. That's the good side of it. The bad side of it is when you do the fire training, the hours that the classes are available are very finite. So therefore, you may have somebody who is on duty that needs to go to the class. So then you got to bring somebody in for overtime. So I have full confidence in our administrators being able to reduce the overtime back down to $500,000 and things changing. My concern going forward is because of the unique nature of our hiring practices and the training requirements, I'm afraid that we're going to see, and Chief Snyder agrees, the potential that we're going to see continuation of a lot of overtime in order to get the proper training done.
well, and the reason I'm questioning this is, you know, like Seminole County has a whole graduation class that just came out of firefighters already ready to go. Just probably need to take final certification. Some of them probably already have. How much is it to hire? How much is one staff member with everything for fire? Not saying paramedic. So what's the difference between hiring a fire and doing a paramedic and training them for paramedic versus hiring a paramedic and training them for fire?
There's a...
I'm just asking out of stupidity.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure. So if you hire a firefighter EMT, which is entry level today, and you send them to paramedic school, that value dollar of school, some are probably around $10,000, and it's 1 year's worth of time in school, and then another month or 2 to get them cleared, meaning trained to work and operate on our units. If you do it conversely and you hire the paramedics and send them to fire school, it's a little over a semester, and it's running slightly cheaper, somewhere around the $6,000 mark.
I'm trying to gauge here $1 million to $10,000 to $6,000 to hiring somebody and having that firefighter there that can assist at this point. I guess I'm looking at $1 million versus the hiring of somebody.
But I think what you're saying is a lot of the overtime was due to a lot of the time with COVID, right? The people that were out, and when you, in the beginning, when you had that kind of protocol, everybody had to be out for a while, right? Like whoever was in contact with and right now we're in the middle of another uptick. and you're going to have people out.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you've got to have people to cover, right?
Yes, ma'am. I don't want to overspeak, but I feel like if this trend that we're seeing this year, if it maintains, we will have to go back and look at the breakover point of hiring and the adjustments in staffing and qualifications. Again, we've seen that workers' comp and that FMLA 4 times higher without any clear specifications. And then you add on COVID to that, and that's really what's pushed us beyond. If that trend continues with COVID and with the other FMLA workers' comp type leave, I think we will, in next year's budget, have to readjust and see if those staffing adjustments make sense and there's a breakover. We're trying to be responsible budgeting on what we're seeing this year, but we don't have a good explanation why it would continue next year other than say it's occurring right now, if that's not too confusing.
You have $30,000 for your accreditation and $25,000 for annual physical fitness. What's the $25,000 annual physical fitness? That wasn't in prior budgets as well.
That's.
I believe that moved over from capital.
That moved over from capital? Okay. Just curious, why did we remove the water coolers? Not a big ticket line item, but why would we take the water coolers away?
That was the city manager's decision to take that out.
I think that's pride in our water. Water quality and all those types of things are where they should be, and I just think that's an adjustment in ownership within.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCool?
We're going through our bargaining right now, right? Okay, so this is a long process when it comes to, firefighters, and, part of the issue is that our firefighters are our much needed first line responders. We depend on them. They are the heroes of our community. At the same turn of the coin, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our people. We're not profiting on our life-saving, capital that we have here, but is there an answer that I ask you and you where our firefighters are the most, the best taken care of as they should be, right, in our community between law enforcement and firefighters, and something that I need to understand. I need to understand the ramifications of our firefighters going to 12-hour shifts as opposed to 24 hours in order to save a lot of this. Can you tell me why that is not a good idea, or why it is? If we have no other way to save, we're going to have to hire more people because we have people out on comp issues, on COVID. We only have so much CARES money going back into the pot. This is a lot here. $1 million in overtime is a lot. So I'm asking what is offered up here as a solution to that.
Anybody?
Bueller?
Anybody?
Listen, I'm not asking for the popular thing. I'm asking for the realist thing here, that our people are paying for. So I'm asking for the reality.
Ms. Nicole, there's a lot of discussion going on with regard to the collective bargaining process. We are trying to strike a balance between fair compensation and being fiscally responsible to our residents while maintaining a very high level of service in the fire department. A lot of questions you are asking have to do with the discussions that we've been having throughout, including with our legal counsel. I anticipate that we will be asking for a meeting with the commission here soon to give you an update on where we are, and I think that's the appropriate venue for that conversation.
Okay, I'm fine with telling me that, to do this, but, the water is muddy for me in understanding what we need to reserve for. We're in budgets right now, but I understand we need to reserve conversation, and I need to understand what that is because I'm being asked these questions and to talk to my people, tell them, oh, this is being discussed, but I need to understand that all options are on the table regarding this. It's a lot, and it's scary for me to look at what the future projections are if we don't get a handle on this, and for reasons that I'm not sure that, that I can talk about, but you know what I mean. So could you tell me, sir, when will that appropriate venue be, right, that we should talk about this? Because the public needs to understand, and it needs to be talked about with them also. So if you can just tell me, because I'm asked these things, and it's budget time, sir, if you could answer that for me. After discussions, after bargaining, correct? Because we got a budget here that we have to pass, one of our biggest expenses here, so just tell me.
I think the appropriate time would be during the executive session, which will be probably within the next 45 days.
Thank you, sir. That's all I want to know. And public, please understand that there are reasons we can't have questions answered at the moment. It's not that we're not asking, but as the city manager, you just heard him say, the appropriate time would be when we can discuss these things further, and then the public will, will always have input. So that's all I have, but I needed to ask because people are asking me these hard questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just have one question. When you look at retirement contributions, it's on page 1, 512200. So when we look at our pension fund, this particular pension fund, because everyone else is on FRS, right, except the fire department is their own pension fund, what type of a projection do you have that what kind of funding are we looking at to pay down that unfunded pension liability? And not only for this coming year, but for future, because I know that there's the state contribution and there's our contribution that's at a minimum, and it's my understanding that in the past we were actually increasing that and adding extra, in other words, from the general fund to go ahead and start paying down or even out that liability in the past. And then we didn't do that anymore. Have we been doing any additional other than what the requirement is for paying into our portion of the pension fund, and what is our portion of the pension fund in terms of percentage?
We have a previous presentation that we gave to the commission regarding the fire pension. If you go according to the actuarial from the pension board, the pension is about $41 million total, and it has a deficit of a little over $8 million. We had our own actuarial look into it, and they said it is more in the $14 million range. Now, part of the reason for the difference is the expected return on investment. The pension board is using about a 7.6% return on investment. Our actuarial, we're using about a 6.5% return on investment, which is very aggressive to say the least. Both of them are. One of the things that we've been having some discussion about amongst ourselves on staff is the need to do an analysis in a different way. The pension board uses a 30-year analysis. Our actuarial used a 20-year analysis. My concern is more a cash flow analysis. We have a significant number of firefighters who will be going into drop or retiring, combination of them, soon. And my concern is that while you may have use our actuarial, $14 million deficit over the next 20 years. But if we have a significant number of people go into drop and all that in the next 10 years, the cash flow will be negative quicker. And the date that we have to have the money won't be 20 years out, it may be 10 years out. The way I look at it is if you have a straight line over 20 years, but we have a lot of people retiring early, so we got a lot of cash flow going out, and then it starts to come back down. The point that it crosses the line is when we need to have that 14 million. And so I want to know when that is, so that we can come back to the commission and say, we need to start funding the pension deficit at a rate of X in order to ensure that we don't have a huge debt that we got to pay all at once. Just for planning purposes, if you just simply took 14 million divided by 20 years, that's $700,000 a year that we need to be putting toward the pension. If it was, what I'm afraid is going to happen, be cash flow, if that can be 10 years, then we need to be prepared to come up with 1.4 million a year to go toward the pension in order to ensure that we cover it. And so the whole pension thing is part of the negotiation. We will be reevaluating what the union has asked for versus what we're suggesting, and look at the dollars for each one so we can compare them. But we do not right now have in the budget, even with the 5-year projected budget, any money going toward the fire pension debt. We're probably going to need to be looking at that.
Well, that was my reason for asking that question.
I know.
Because if we're talking about budget, and we need to look at, because again, it was my understanding, am I wrong, that we paid extra in the past?
Right, we have.
And when did that stop?
I don't recall, but someone in our staff who's been here a long time recalls that it was under Jane Shang. She made that decision, and I can't speak to why.
So, I mean, it's like if you have a mortgage and you want to pay it down faster, you put in extra. And if we were doing that for a while, that helped. And we're not doing that now. And now we have, I mean, if you look at the average, if you look at the age of our firefighters and the amount of time that they have in, you have a group that's going to retire. This is a given. And we have to make sure that that pension fund is funded, especially when that group comes through that is going to be retiring, in the next 5 years, give or take, something like that, right? 6 years. So we have a short amount of time to start looking at, and I know we're going to go through the negotiations and all that stuff with the shade meeting, but the reality is what you're showing me here, the 1.289 million, 1.289 700,000 that we're looking at, it's my understanding that a portion of that goes to unfunded and a portion goes to current.
Yes, ma'am.
And we need to look at budgeting to increase the unfunded before we end up in a dire situation. And that's the point of this budget, is to really look at what is a need, and not maybe a need now, maybe not a need this year, but 3-4 years down the road, they need to be secure. That pension fund needs to be decently secured. So, the commission at some point is going to have some hard decisions to make as to how much extra you want to put in. And at some point, if you can find out what was the additional that we were paying in before it was, you don't have to have that today, it can be whenever, it doesn't matter. I don't want that number now. I know it's difficult to find out, but yes. You have an answer? No. Stacy?
Yeah.
It was about, I thought it was about 500.
She looked like she had she had that look on her face.
So 2015, there was an additional $250,000 as a lump sum. Now, there have been years where we're paying slightly more. So it's kind of an estimate what we're looking at in terms of the contribution that we make. So we are provided with the percentage each year. We budget out for what we anticipate the wages are going to be, and then we true that up. So
Right.
we could be potentially, if our projections are higher, we end up contributing more than what was required. So there are years when there is some of that money happening, but the last time we did a lump sum, I guess to say, was $180,000 in 2016. 2015 was $250,000. And then, like I said, there are the overages each year. For instance, 2020, there was $74,287 that was over and above what was required.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm looking at the actual additional conscious number that was put in to start paying that down.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
That
what
was
I'm looking at. I mean, I understand you have overages, you have things that however that works. But so 2015, you're telling me we put in 250, and 2016, 180.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
since then, that's only what's calculated as an overage that's been in there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So at some point, we really need to, at some point, look at this and see, put some sort of funding in to make a dent in what we have. Yes, ma'am. You're on the
No,
board.
what I was going to say is I think when we did that in 2016 I think we had, did a true up, and at that point decided to put some extra money into it. So the extra, I mean, like we only put in extra $900 from last year and another $30,000 in the estimated state contribution. So none of that is any additional. You know, one suggestion I have is each year when we're doing a true up, we have additional funds. And it might be a great practice to start to take a percentage of those additional funds that we haven't used and to put them towards this retirement. You know, it gets lost as it goes down the commission when we get new commissioners, and they don't realize this until it gets brought up during the bargaining. So I personally don't want this to be something that's kicked down the boat to whoever's taking our place in the next few years. And we need to have, like I said, a standard percentage of X, Y, Z. I don't care if it's 10%, 20%. If we have extra few $1 million left over from our budget, we need to take that money and it needs to be put towards this.
I think, Commissioner Bradford, that we're better off budgeting a certain set amount, because if you look at a percentage, you don't know how the economy is going to be. But even if we budgeted $250,000 a year extra, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you can add more, but I think at some point, and I don't know what you, I'm just throwing this out there, it should be a finite amount, because percentage-wise, you just don't know what you're going to have. You can always use your surplus if you have something when it comes time to do your budget amendments, and we have that, we can add additional. But I think at some point, something has to be a dedicated, even if it's $100,000, it's something. It should be a dedicated fund.
Are you saying 700,000? When you threw a number out there, you know, $700,000 towards the pension, is that gross, or you're not talking annual, right?
Go ahead.
Well, what I was talking about would be each year a lump sum amount.
Of 700?
If we were saying that it was 14 million deficit based on our actuarial, divided by 20 months, 20 years, that's $700,000, simple, no interest, no nothing. That's just simple math for me. So, you know, something in the order of $700,000 a year would seem like at least what we should be looking at, contributing to the pension over and above the normal contribution.
That's a lot. You know, and I know it's hard to do because it's not something we can feel. It's not something we can see. It's not, I get it, it's not
But it's
making our roads pretty, but it's fiscally responsibility of what we're supposed to be doing here. So where do we pull $700,000 a year from?
Is it
Any
the will
ideas?
of the commission to budget this?
I'm sorry?
is it the will of the commission to budget the extra money? This is the time to put it in the budget.
Is it the will of the commission to throw debt in on an annual basis?
Well, commissioners, you have to decide, I know Commissioner Sosa, you're on the board, so we have to look at if we want, what is the amount that we want to budget? Do we want to budget something, and what's a realistic amount that we can absorb? Like, nothing is doing nothing. So I think that, $700,000 is a huge chunk, like you said, Commissioner Bradford. It's a lot of money, and it needs to be pulled from something. We just don't have $700,000 every year that we can budget that we want to use toward that. So, I mean, is there a way that you can get us some more figures or compare the two actuary reports, and we can go somewhere in the middle? I'm going to let Commissioner Sosa go, and then we'll come back to this.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. In the last 4 years since the last agreement, you said that the pension board uses a 7% rate of return, correct?
7.6%.
7.6%. Now,
Which, by the way, has only happened once in the last 20 years.
okay, that was my question. My next question is, based on that, in the last 4 years, what has, do you do it on like an annual yield, what the return on investment is annually? And if so, what has it been for the last 3 to 4 years of this last agreement?
I don't have
What's the average rate of return?
Mr. Sosa, I don't have the specific numbers, but I do remember in reading our actuarial report when they were using 6.5%, they said it had a 50-50 chance of occurring. I know from my own personal stuff that 5% has a 90% chance of happening. So if you wanted to be really conservative, you'd be using 5% rate of return. And the way they're talking about the economy next couple of years, even that'll be a stretch. But that's one of the difficult things is, what level of risk do you want to take? If you're comfortable with the 50-50, you use the 6.5%. If you're wanting something more defined, you would use 5%. It would not be my recommendation to do 7.6%.
Now, when this happens with the pension, the city's funding the pension, how much say do we have as to the rate of return? How much stake does the city have to make those, saying, hey, we want to go to a 6% return?
Under the state statute, the pension board is an independent body from the city. The city has 2 members. The fire union has 2 members, and both the city and the fire union agreed to a single member, which I believe is Mary Lyson right now. So the pension board is very much autonomous in terms of their decision-making and how to invest and that type of thing. And so it's tough for us because ultimately, if the fund comes up short, it's not on the pension board, it's on the city of Deltona to come up with the money.
All right. So, I mean, what kind of persuasion do we have if we have a couple members on the board to get that rate of return?
I would like to think that if we were to meet with the pension board and say, we're willing to put blank amount of money into the fund to make up the deficit, but in doing so, we would like the following. And we do a contract to that effect, like what kind of report we want, what kind of rate of return do we want. I think that's something that we could negotiate. Technically, they have no obligation to agree to it. So that would be, in talking to our attorney, that would be about the only option we really have.
Okay, because if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying the pension board says we have an $8 million unfunded liability. But when you had our own consultant for the city look through it, it's more of a $14 million deficit. So that's $6 million is a lot of money to be floating out there in an unfunded liability.
But I also would add that when I ran the numbers at 5%, it's more like $19 million. as I said, it's your level of risk that you're willing to take. I would certainly recommend 6.5%. We did not budget for this year to put money in because a lot of this is subject to our negotiations that we're having with the fire union. However, it is extremely important that we maintain a healthy fund balance over the next 5 years, because next year we definitely will be coming back to you all and saying we need to start putting X toward the deficit. And if we don't have a fund balance built into our budget, then we're not going to be able to afford that going forward.
And we have a better idea of all of this after we have executive session, correct?
No, ma'am. Actually, it may be longer than that. We will give you where we are with the negotiation. We will give you some financials associated with it. But, the way the process works is if negotiations go, when both parties agree that it's at an impasse, it goes to an arbitrator or mediation.
And either
Is it arbitrator or mediation?
mediation is
Mediation.
what you do.
And then if the two parties are not able to come back together on that, then it would come back to the commission to make the final decision.
Do we know how many members or personnel from the fire department are looking to that part of their career where they're going to enter the drop, and how many are actually going into full retirement within the next 5 years?
That's exactly why I want to cash flow it. Get that information as to who's planning to retire when. It's not a very difficult exercise. It's nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet. But then you're able to cash flow when you need the money. Because candidly, somebody can go into drop now. They have an 8-year drop. At the end of 8 years, we know there's going to be a big check that's going to be cut. And so we can cash flow it, see when the money needs to be there. Because like I said, my fear, from what I understand with the fire department, is if you had that straight line of payout, the reality is we're going to go way above that line over the next 10 years, and then it's going to come down and go back under. And if where that point crosses that flat line, that's when we need that 14, 19, 8 million in the bank during that period of time to be able to pay it out.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, so any more questions on operations? I think the whole pension situation is something that you're going to have to bring back to this commission with some scenario and numbers, whether it's the 8 million, 14 million, the something in between, who's going to retire when, not names, but how many are we looking at, and see what you can project out so that we can, by the time we actually get ready to approve the budget and have that in a public hearing, we have at least some sort of an idea of what we need to budget for the next few years and set something aside this year if the commission. One way or the other, we need the information, right?
Amen.
Do we have consensus for getting the information? Commissioner Sosa?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner King?
I'm for information, and I think we need a line item in this budget for additional funds added that needs to be in there so that commissioners, when we're gone, can see that we have to have this in here. Not just one line item, but we need to have the additional contribution towards true up. I don't care how you word it, but it's critical that it's in here, because if it's not in here, it's forgotten. And we're going to be where in 5 years, it's not going to be $700,000 a year we're going to need $1 million.
Or more.
Or more.
Yeah,
So
when everybody
this is our
retires.
responsibility to start truing this up now. Just like any other debt that we have, this is a huge debt that we've got to look at.
So is there a flavor for having, the information for sure, but do we have a consensus that we would like to look at a line item and have staff bring us some sort of a realistic, yes? Yes, yes, yes. Commissioner King? Yes. Okay, so your task is twofold. Bring us the numbers scenario with the projection from the pension board, the projection from our actuary, and a realistic number that we need to put in this budget and keep as a line item to start reducing that. So we're good with the fire department? Yes?
I just wanted to just make sure I presented it well enough. The $1 million is a big number for us also. We've had 6 openings, so we now have 7. We filled 6 of the 7, so our regular salaries, we're missing some. So there is a small amount of offsetting money in there as well. But if this trend continues, we will come back with solutions to drive that dollar down. If this is truly an outlier, which it all points to right now, it trends way outside our norms. But we take that number serious as well, and if it continues to trend, we will come back with solutions to reduce that number.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. You guys did a great job. Thank you. Okay, so now it's my understanding we're going to be taking a break now. Several are getting a little twitchy up here to head to the back. So we will go ahead and take 30 minutes.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just want to do this for Mr. King's sake. I brought in 2 cheesecakes today, so you have dessert. I had to do it to him. If he's nice, I will set aside a couple slices.
Please
and we'll find out a way to get it to him.
He'll get it. There you go. He's got the thumbs up. Okay, 30 minutes. If we're done sooner, we will reconvene quicker than that, but this will give everyone a time for a break. Thank you very much. Can we set a timer for 30 minutes and just be safe with that?